Welcome to the world of stand-up. Bryan Buckley.
Yes, sir.
What's up, brother?
How you doing?
I'm fabulous. I'm having a hard time speaking clearly. I'm fabulous. It's a good day, dude.
Absolutely.
I'm so thankful that you were willing to make the trek up from your place in San Diego to come talk about what you're doing, and our mutual friend Greg hooked this up.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I wanted to honor what you are and who you are and what you've done. So I'm going to do something that I don't ever do on this podcast.
Okay.
You're, I believe it's your assistant, Alexa. How ironic to have an assistant.
Yeah, right.
Alexa.
Trust me, when you say your name out loud and you got like two things
Hey,
talking
Alexa.
back at you. Yeah, it happens all the time. Like,
Yeah,
we need a new
Siri
name.
not available for the job? All right. I wanted to read some of the stuff about you so that just right out the gate on the show, people know who you are and what you've done. So let's see. So are you the founder of Battle Brothers Foundation?
Yes.
Okay. So Battle Brothers Foundation is a 501c3.
Yep.
And it tell me a little bit about that. It's founded in 2016.
Yep. With Battle Brothers, really, it was in the 2016 timeframe.
Okay.
I got out of the military in 2013, but for some reason that year I just started really noticing what was happening with veterans. And there's been a lot of great nonprofits that help out active duty and their families, and they need that, but there wasn't really much for the veteran community, it felt like. So I decided to start Battle Brothers Foundation. I just made a 3-tier approach of a personal, medical, and economic. So if you're transitioning out of the military, you got a veteran that can be there to talk to 24/7, like big brother, big sister type thing.
For vets.
Yep, and then medical, help out VA disability claims, or the veterans suffering with alcohol, opiates, post-traumatic stress, or all the above. We can get them to treatment centers free of charge. And then the last phase was the economic phase of finding that veteran a job so they had the same sense of purpose like they did while they served in the military.
That's fantastic, man. So, and that is connected to your company, which is HVGC.
Yeah, so Helmand Valley came a little bit after that.
Yeah,
so it was
you're all modded up here. You got the hat.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
so Helmand Valley's in Afghanistan, right?
Yeah, so the Helmand province is in the southwest part of Afghanistan, and it was by far the most volatile area in all of Afghanistan. The reason being, it borders up to Pakistan, and in the Helmand you have the Helmand River Valley, and we call it like the green zone. So it's kind of funny. You're in this place fighting. It's like a triple canopy jungle, and then you're looking up at mountains and snow caps and stuff like that. It's just a very bizarre world. But why it was so significant to the Taliban was the Helmand River Valley. They would always have the farmers go out. They would throw out their poppy, they would cultivate into heroin, and then they would sell it and tax it, and that's how the Taliban could fuel their insurgency. And it was really bad between the times of May through the end of October, because that's when the Taliban will come up from Pakistan, tell the farmers what to do, and then once Croptober's done and all that stuff's out, they just walk back to Pakistan and wait out the winter. So it was a really difficult area to operate in.
Okay, so what's the significance of you naming your cannabis company after the Helmand Valley?
So when you're a Marine Raider and you serve in the Helmand province, you become part of the Helmand Valley Gun Club, and you get an HVGC tattoo on you.
Okay.
So when we were trying to, I was sitting there thinking, okay, we're going to need to get research funded. We're going to need to do this. How am I going to make it happen? And then it was really from a Paul Newman salad dressing bottle where it said 100% of profits to charity. So I was like, well, what if we start an adult use brand and I can get the word out? We can start getting some money from that to put towards the medical cannabis research and kind of go from there. And that's how Helmand Valley Growers Company was born.
Okay. So I'm reading here as well that 100% of your HV, I love the play on that though, like the Helmand Valley Gun Club versus the Growers
absolutely.
Company. So 100% of your profits from HVGC goes towards medical cannabis research.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that here in a second, but I want to just read these 2 paragraphs because you're quite a decorated human being.
Yeah.
And to consider there's 2 sides of it, I think, as both as a man and as an American. When I look at a list of what you've accomplished, and I see this, and I'm going to read it here soon so you guys can hear it, it's no fucking joke, man. Like, you've seen some shit.
Yeah.
And so to be at your stage of life, doing what you're doing for others and for yourself, you're in the entrepreneur space, you're in the medical research space, you got a lot going on. It's one of those things you're like, wow, what an intensely courageous human being you are. So anyway, that's a big deal. Let me read this. So it says, and again, I got this from Alexa, not the Amazon one, his assistant. As a special operations team commander with Marine Raiders, Bryan led multiple teams in deployments to Operation Enduring Freedom Trans-Sahara, which is in Africa. Southeast Asia, and Operation Enduring Freedom Afghanistan in the Helmand province. Developed rapport with numerous host nations forces, enhanced capability and capacity within the host nation units, and briefed U.S. ambassadors. Additionally, he led a 20-man raider team to Afghanistan that mentored, trained, and conducted over 40 combat ops with an Afghan Special Operations Battalion. Bryan also deployed twice in Operation Iraqi Freedom with Marine Infantry and Marine Reconnaissance. Bryan is an accomplished sales and operations leader. His credentials include a distinguished background in leadership, policy, training, management, operations, and strategic decision-making. Furthermore, Bryan is adept in negotiation, alliance formation, and organizational communication. His ability to forge productive partnerships among stakeholders and high-level decision-makers within sophisticated organizations helps ensure the free and productive flow of information. In addition, he counsels and assists those within and in association with government agencies, along with private sectors, to adopt best practices in compliance with applicable regulations and statutes. Bryan is a graduate of Villanova University.
There you go.
So that's it. I mean, that's all you're doing. Jeez, man, that's a mouthful. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about that's really interesting to me is the work that you're doing in medical research specific to cannabis being hopefully soon available to veterans through the VA as a medicine.
Yeah.
I have a father who's 70 years old, and he's not a combat veteran, but he still is a veteran. He was in the Navy as an air traffic controller, and he's been a part of the VA his entire life because his health has been shit. He's been a diabetic. He still is a diabetic. He's had heart attacks. And so he's been on the litany of opiate type of medicines, and it's wreaked havoc on his body because of it, and even to the point to where he fully had to stop taking opiates at one point. And so as a cannabis user myself, there were times when I'd be like, just come over here, Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's try this, and it would help him. But because of aspects of his availability within the VA and testing, he didn't want to subject himself to losing his benefits if they were to find out that he was ingesting an illegal drug, which is technically still what cannabis is, even though it's medically legal here. It's medically and recreationally legal in a lot of states. The U.S. government still looks at it as a Schedule I drug, which is bananas to me. That's the stupidest thing I think the government has done, and they've done a lot of dumb things. So
it's pretty remarkable.
It's a pretty wide list. Anyway, so when I hear about this work that you're doing, I'm like, that has to be quite a bite to chew off. So I was hoping you could share with me where the inspiration come and what you're doing specific to getting cannabis to be something the VA can prescribe.
Yeah, when I got out of the military, I was deemed 100% disabled. I got shot up in Afghanistan, so I was hit by a thing called an underbarrel grenade launcher, which is like a grenade flew by my head and went off. So shrapnel throughout my body.
Wow.
Been in IED strikes and everything, so I have traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress and all the other bumps and bruises that kind of come along with playing in the playground, right? So it really, my body was pretty much at war with itself. I just could not sleep. Hypervigilance would kick in, so you're always kind of scanning, looking for threats, and it just wasn't fun. And someone finally said, why don't you try some cannabis? Never had an issue with it, never used it before, but I was like, hey, I'll give it a shot. And it was the first time, I felt like a warm blanket kind of wrapped itself around my brain. Like my body went to peace with itself. I was able to get a full night of sleep. Kept using it just at nighttime, and it was just doing wonders for me. So I'm like, what's the gap here? Like, why can't we get this into the VA?
Yeah.
Like, I can go into the VA and get 15 pills like that. Why can't we do this? So I went and talked to a couple of members of Congress, and I said, what would you guys need to get medical cannabis into the VA system? And they're like, if you can get data and American doctors, you'll have a really good argument.
Okay, so hold on. Before you continue, I want to understand that process, because clearly you're having this epiphany. Your body is feeling a sense of peace that it hasn't, a relief, if not peace, in who knows how long. So you get an idea. So did you think, well, I'm going to talk to Congress people, or like, did you have to research how do I do this? What was that process like?
It's interesting. It's kind of use some of the things we do in the military. You want to get access and placement, and start meeting some people and some decisions makers. So to kind of begin this whole journey, my friends and I, we started a security company, and we're like, well, let's focus on cannabis security. And that way I was able to start meeting some people and talking to them. And then I got invited to a couple events, and there were some members of Congress there, and I just came up, and I have a Marine background, and they naturally like to talk to you, and we just started having those conversations. And I'm like, well, what will it take? And they're like, this is it. That's what we're waiting on. Like, and one went as far as like, I'm really sure it works, but I'll never walk out that office door and say, we need cannabis and it works now. I need data. So I'm like, well, there it is. That's the gap. Like the numbers don't lie. And we can be a little bullish about it because we've seen what's going on in Israel and some of the other countries who are doing the research, and it works. And so it's like, well, let's just go through this and do all the appropriate things that need to be done and do it with American veterans, with American doctors. What can Congress say at that point?
Okay, so describe that to me, because I heard you say, so Israel is where a majority of your research is being conducted.
Well, it'll be Israeli doctors. So
Okay.
there's a firm called Niametic Healthcare and Research Services.
Okay.
And they've been operational for about, like 20 years or so. And they've done a lot of really good research. They really actually started out with like their senior community and people who just weren't having great quality of life. And they said, forget the opiates, let's try some cannabis. And it was almost like that movie Awakenings with like Robert De Niro and Robin Williams. Like you just see these people kind of come back to life. So they've really shown like, hey, it does work. And so it was like, all right, well, they're out here in America. I literally met the one guy, Helmand from Niametic. I was at a UCLA cannabis symposium, and we met over a coffee break. And I just kind of told him what I wanted to do. He is a veteran himself, serving in the Israeli Defense Forces. So he's like, yeah, I think we can make this happen. And then he kind of went into how difficult it's going to be, and we started kind of working on that part. More importantly, like having an institutional review board, which I'd never even heard that phrase before. But that is something
Sounds fancy.
Yeah, and trust me, it's literally it's a group of doctors. They will go through and make sure you're doing everything safe and there's efficacy and all that good stuff, because it falls under the FDA. And once you get an IRB, it means they're clearing you to conduct human trials.
What is an IRB?
Institutional Review Board.
Okay, got it.
So it's like basically they're like, go ahead, you can start using human beings on what you're trying to study. So they don't mess around with it. And they're typically saved for colleges and universities or big medical groups, not really a private company. And now it was a Scheduled I drug. So luckily, the gentleman who's leading our steering committee is a doctor named Dr. Victor Novak. He's an Israeli. He, at one point, was in charge of Harvard's Clinical Research Institute. He's such a talent. At the height of COVID, we lost him for a couple months because he had to run Israel's second largest hospital's COVID clinic. So just a really great guy and has done FDA trials and kind of gets it. And I really believe due to the research that he did in Israel, and he just basically said, hey, this is what we're doing. We're just going to rinse and repeat here with you guys, and these are the results. I think that's what got us over the edge, because I think they had like an 83% success rate of reducing the symptoms of post-traumatic stress using medical cannabis, which is pretty much a wonder drug.
So these trials they're in the United States?
I'm doing them in the United States.
Wow.
So the first one will be in California. The reason why we're just limiting it to California, I mean, I just listened to what the doctors tell me, and Dr. Novak's like, we haven't done this before. I don't want to have to fly a vet from New York to California back and forth and like 2 times in a week.
Yeah.
So we're going to learn a lot. But at the end of this first study, we'll be able to develop a treatment protocol and a formulation. And then we're going to move it into a secondary state. I'm in early talks with a VA system that we might be able to bring our treatment protocol and formulation in there. We'll do another study probably with 50 veterans with the point of proving it's repeatable, accessible, having the same results. And then at that point, I'm pretty much as far as I can go unless I get FDA approval. So working with members of Congress like I am, they'll give me a platform. I'll raise my right hand. I'll say, here's your data. Here's your American doctors. Can we proceed with FDA trials? And then go from there with the end state that our Helmand Valley Growers Company medical product will be in every VA pharmacy, and VA doctors can prescribe to veterans, thus making medical cannabis federally legal, not just for veterans, for every patient that it would help out in America.
Is that like a hack to get it to be legal? Because it seems like you're going like the back door, and all of a sudden it's like there's no way that these levels of approvals and the research that has been conducted, there's no way that this can stay Schedule I.
Yeah. I think really what is helping us is I'm a veteran. And so when I was on Capitol Hill in September, I mean, I looked at them in the eyes and said, you sent me to war, now it's your turn to fix me. And they can't really say, well, they're like,
well, they can, but it's
not good for
form.
business,
Yeah.
So we kind of have that armor, like no pun intended, about us. And it's getting to the point. I mean, even when you saw things with COVID where states were saying, no, companies can remain open and continue to sell because people need it. I mean, you open a Pandora's box. Now, I mean, Schedule I means there's no medical benefit and highly addictive. And we all know that's garbage. To the point that one thing really frustrates me is in December of 2020, the United Nations has this treaty called the 1961 Treaty, and all of us follow it. It's basically for medical, like what is legal, what's not, what's on the, their scheduling board and all that. And America follows everything to the T, to the point when we're like, hey, we need to reschedule cannabis. We're like, 1961 Treaty, man. Sorry.
Is that
Can't
the
do
reason
it.
why?
Yeah.
I've always wondered that. I didn't know that.
Well, the 1961 Treaty, they removed cannabis from it. It's no longer internationally illegal. So what the General Secretary did is he sends out a letter to all world leaders. Internationally
illegal? Or
it's no longer internationally illegal. They actually consider there's medical value. They literally wrote World Health Organization. We found the medical value in it, and so we're removing it from the treaty. The United States even voted for it. It literally was like a 15 to 14 vote. It was kind of like the old Warsaw Pact versus NATO, and Azerbaijan, for whatever reason, jumped over and said yes. So the Western countries were like, no, absolutely. But we haven't done anything with it. And it's the only time the United States of America has not followed that treaty. So we've sent letters to the Attorney General saying, hey, what are you doing? Why aren't you doing your job? We're putting in FOIA requests. I've talked to people on Capitol Hill. I can really scare the crap out of Democrats because I tell them the Republicans are going to steal this from you guys, and they just kind of look at you. But it's like, hey, things need to start happening. So what Joe Biden did last month, where he pardoned 6,500 people, which I don't think it impacted anyone, to be honest with you. We're trying to find someone, but no one really knows.
Well, it's because everything that he was pardoning was always attached to something else that was unpardonable.
Well, yeah, it's like, 99% of all the federal crimes are for trafficking.
Right.
But then him saying...
Looked good, though.
It did. But him saying, I want the Attorney General and Human Health Services to look at rescheduling cannabis. I mean, that was direct language coming from the guys I work with at the Veterans Action Council. Some are like, oh, that was probably our work. Some of us, and I'm on that side, how can you tell? Regardless, he said it.
Right.
And hopefully they do a very mature thing and not just go to a Schedule 2, but look to either remove it altogether or, schedule.
What do you think is, I know my thoughts about this, and I'll share them after I hear yours. What do you think the real underlying reason is behind why?
Pharmaceutical.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Until they can profit on it.
Absolutely.
Putting all those billions of dollars of lobbying money.
Yep. Yeah, they help get people elected. That's all it is. I mean, anyone that sits there and says, "Now these opiates are better," or fentanyl is a Schedule 2 and cannabis should be a Schedule 1. Right. That makes sense. It's like, guys, give me a break. I mean, it's the worst kept secret, whatever that they're trying to do.
It's not even
a secret, right? Yeah. It's just like one of those things they won't say out loud. But that's all it is.
It's really crazy. Like I'll give Greg's podcast a plug. Like, so our friend Greg, he's starting a podcast here soon called Sincerely Cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And the subject matter is he's basically wanting to expose all of the nonsense that has been put out there about cannabis, all the way down from when it was basically first made illegal and the paper lobby that was trying to transition it, like the hemp was being used. And so they couldn't say hemp was illegal because there was zero reason why they would make hemp illegal. So they had to go, it was because of the black people are screwing white girls. And we got to have the boogeyman now. This whole just complete campaign of lies about the plant itself and what it provides. And then, as that reaches into culture and the different things about the way that it's perceived and the way that people use it is perceived and the effects of it, and it's going to turn you into the boogeyman and all this other stuff. And it's like, time is now showing, I heard you say it's a wonder drug.
Yeah.
It's incredible to have something so powerful be so demonized.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the amount of untapped potential of the plant is... I mean, who knows how far this thing can go? And I mean, you hear things from people who are doing research. They've, suppositories have helped out with certain rectal cancers and things of that nature.
Don't put your joint up your ass.
No,
I want to make sure we're clear about that.
Suppository and make sure it's professionally and all that. But yeah, that'd be a rough night for you. But and again, and what I think helps us as well is we're adults about the whole thing where we're like, hey, but cannabis isn't for everyone as well. That's why I tell people it should be a tool in the toolkit. If it makes sense, why are we not doing it?
Yeah. I watched that video that you'd sent me about, it was a 2 minutes, 20 second deal. And you use that phrase there too, that it's not for everyone, but it should be in the toolkit. And that's such a measured, mature approach.
Yeah.
And I think that, unfortunately, actually, there are some in the cannabis community that don't even abide by that. They think you should have everything. Like, everybody needs, if it doesn't work for you, you didn't do it right or whatever.
Exactly.
And that's unfortunate because that causes more pushback that I think they need.
Well, our country has become insanely emotional over the past 10 years. I mean, it's like literally...
I'm offended at you saying that.
Exactly, right? Like, how dare I? My God. So I'll go sit in my safe space for a little bit. But, I mean, it's just, again, you got to look at things like logically and be like, listen, you got to look at the Israelis. They're really good at this stuff. And they're saying if there's a history of psychosis in people's family, we don't want to have them come into research because we have seen cannabis exacerbate that.
Yeah.
Certain mental health things like cannabis might not be the thing. But then there's other things that's going to be exciting when the psychedelic realm might start coming through. And I'm hearing MDMA might be through FDA trials
I've
in
heard
23.
That they're in the second or third trial level right now.
Yeah, I think I heard one guy, and it was like a Harvard business guy, and he's like, I think 2023 is what I'm hearing. And I was like, well, that could make sense. So it's kind of there, but then again, that might not be for everyone either. But we just got to get away from these opiates.
Aspirin isn't for everyone.
Yeah, just get away from these opiates.
Pepto-Bismol is not for everyone,
No, and that's you're seeing, especially in the veteran community, the massive amount of suicides that we're facing. We're definitely doing something wrong, and for us to just kind of sit around to be like, hemming and hawing about it, just using human lives as cannon fodder for political means.
Doing your push-ups.
Yeah, it's just like, come on, this is getting ridiculous. And there's no reason why I should be doing what I'm doing, but I'm going to do it because our government isn't. And I'm a capitalist through and through. That's what I love about this country. If you think something's fucked up, go do it yourself and make them follow in place.
I'm curious to see how this whole thing transitions with cannabis soon because in my act, I'm a comedian. So I had a whole bit where I was talking about it's the names that are the problem. Like, can you imagine standing in front of Congress? No, Your Honor. Purple monkey balls will really help you to feel better at night and sleep. And if that doesn't work, you can get, Schindler's Shit Blast or whatever the name of the strain is.
Well, they're not
even
immune from that either. Because every bill's like the 420 bill or the dank bill or this. Can you just call it like medical bill? We don't have to go all crazy, all that stuff. But I guess I gotta have fun too. So
all those stuffed shirts, it's dank.
Yeah.
I'm about ready to submit to the floor of the dank bill.
Oh, and that's a scary thing too.
And in munchy fashion, it's got a bunch of pork in it. So couldn't help. Sorry.
Yeah, it's no, but like I said, a lot of education needs to be done. And I was even watching a testimony that happened this week in D.C. And it's just pretty incredible sometimes of what people are saying. And I sit here and look like I'm going through all these hoops to get an IRB and work with the medical and do all that. And then you got these politicians up there just say, no, it's known that people overdose from cannabis all the time. And I'm like, you're
known
on that platform
Yeah.
just throwing it out there. It's like, show me one federal study that says someone has overdosed from cannabis, because you can't.
Impossible.
CDC, none of them. There's nothing there.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. There's very few drugs / medicines that if I remember right, psychedelics are the same way, right? You can't overdose from shrooms.
Yeah, I think
you'll just puke your guts out and go on a wild ride.
That's what I think. Yeah, I don't know in terms of some of the synthetic stuff that they're looking at, where I don't know what can happen there or what's put in there, but
just actual mushrooms, magic mushrooms.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember reading a thing that one of the pioneers in that space was Terrence McKenna. He was one of the main dudes. That guy was out of his mind, man.
Wow.
Literally, he would take 20 grams at a time and just. He's up at the the Zeus Council in heaven or whatever where he's at when he's high like this, and he had a lot of interesting things to say. But I clearly that's not cannabis, and that's so. Maybe you can help distinguish this, because I'm realizing I don't know the difference. Cannabis is considered psychoactive, but it's not hallucinogenic, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So what does that specifically mean then? So if it's psychoactive but not hallucinogenic, what's the dynamic there? How do you describe that?
I think, to me, and I don't know if I have the best answer for it either. Sometimes when you talk to people who do these deep trips, which, I've had some friends who've done some of those ceremonies, and it's crazy, but it's like an out-of-body experience, or you're literally looking at yourself sitting on the ground, but you're floating around and stuff like that. I think that's what that can cause. I don't believe cannabis would, cannabis you're just going to sit there and get into a relaxed state, sleepy, maybe you'll be a little bit more up, but nothing like an out-of-body experience from it. So I think that's kind of the big difference. And things that we're looking at too with ours is it's going to be a microdose. Right. We want people to take this during the daytime so they can go around. That's where the education process has to come in. Is we all have this endocannabinoid system. The Israelis have not seen CBD by itself work, but it's kind of like the engine that gets it into your endocannabinoid system is THC. Mm-hmm. So that's why you're seeing some of the things you're giving kids. Kids aren't walking around stoned. it's just a little bit of THC to get into their ECS to kill the epilepsies and all that stuff. And that's where our daytime might be like a 1 THC to 300 CBD, just, nothing bad. Or nothing bad in terms of like getting you high or whatever the traditional sense.
Yeah, no traditional high.
Yeah. And then nighttime, though, it will, because we're just finding veterans crank up the THC, kind of get them that little euphoric, relaxed kind of state to help them go to bed and stay to sleep. And that's where you see these politicians think you just go out and like rip a tree down and throw it in your joint and you're smoking and there's nothing to it, no science behind it. It's just really frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something to be said for that. My wife and I, we did Sober October. Mm-hmm. So we have medical cards and we use cannabis on a regular basis in the evenings. Same purpose you do, for sleep or just to mellow out or whatever. And we didn't do that for a big chunk of the month of October, and it sucked. Yeah. And I realized some things about like just the cannabinoid system in the body, how it relates to inflation, mm-hmm. and how when your body's in an inflammatory state, nothing works right. Your metabolism gets screwed up, your muscle building goes down, like it's just not a good thing. And like during that time, actually, it was interesting because for those weeks that we did that, I was calorically eating less, but I was gaining weight.
Wow.
And then when I got back into the habit of, and it's not every night, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
Several nights a week, getting into that state, it's like all of a sudden things just start feeling better and the creaks and cracks of the body start going away.
It's incredible. Yeah, because every now and then I take a little bit of break myself, just maybe a couple nights here and there, and it's like you feel different and you don't feel that great.
Dude, I tell you what, that first night back after being out for a few weeks, bro.
Yep. Good times rolling.
Whew.
Yeah.
I got a bunch of comedy out of that one. That was fun.
Good stuff.
Yeah, dude. So tell me a little bit about your company, Helmand Valley. So you clearly your profits go to that, but what do you sell? Where is it located? How would people support that? What do you need right now? What's your most pressing need?
Yeah, so with Helmand Valley, it's been a really great experience. A lot of lessons learned. Really, it was a really tough barrier of entry, but we, I remember at one point we were getting really close with this one investor back in like mid 2019. And great guy. He would have been perfect for the mission. He was self-made millionaire. He actually wrestled at University of North Carolina and saw one of the greatest sports events of all time. He watched Michael Jordan and Lawrence Taylor play one-on-one basketball against each other. And he's like, I'm an international businessman. I've been in there with the Sharks. He's like, there is no one more intense than Michael Jordan. Sure. I mean, it was just, he's like, but, went on to become an Army Ranger, and he heard what we were doing, and he was he's like, I've been looking for you guys for 5 years. We can do this. And he was super excited. Unfortunately, he was a stage 4 cancer survivor. And then he went on a trip. We kind of had a handshake deal. Everything was good. Paperwork was going to get signed when he got back. Goes to get a physical. No cancer or anything like that, but his blood count wasn't looking great. And basically the doctors told him, like, you can keep going down this life and it's going to end pretty painfully in a couple of years, or you can go into retirement, enjoy yourself, and take care of your body, and you're going to be okay. So he was the type of guy that he's like, I just don't give you money. Like, he's like, I get in the fighting hall with you, and we do it together. But he's like, listen, this brand's too good. He's like, someone's going to want to be a part of this. And, you're thinking at that point, it's like 3 years of just kind of getting your teeth kicked in. And I was asked to go see these guys named George and Cody Sadler. And they had a company in California that they recently sold. They now just launched a brand new company that's doing extremely well called Gelato. And they had a nonprofit sector, and they were trying to give money to veterans, and no one wanted to take their money because it was cannabis. And I'm like, I'll gladly take your money. So went down there, talked with some of their staff, and I just kind of threw Hail Mary out there. I'm like, hey, I kind of have this idea with Helmand Valley Growers Company, through the pitch. And they're like, George and Cody love vets. Like this, I bet this is something that will be up their alley. And they asked me to come back down on a Wednesday. Sat down, talked with them, told them what I wanted to do, and that's when they're like, okay, get in here. We're going to back you guys up. And basically what they did in the beginning was just paid for all of our product up front, and we just made them whole. So say if a cart cost $14 to get onto the shelf, we gave them $14 and we kept the profits, and they didn't want anything about it. So we're still really closely working with them, which has been a great, it's now like a true friendship. But, without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. So, the company, like everyone, has been a lot of ebbs and flows. People who started aren't here anymore, but the mission continues. And
How
just
long has it been since he founded it?
I founded this. The concept came out in 2016, and I think we were like legal on paper in 2017, and then really started getting moving in 2019 when we met George and Cody. Like that's when like the whole other side of the business was opened up. Like, okay, you need to do marketing, branding, this, that, and you're like, wow, it's just not show up, put something on the shelf, and off it goes.
Right.
But you know, I think over the past probably 60 to 90 days, we've really made a positive turn where we're starting to recruit some of the top talent. People want to come work for us. They understand we're the real deal. We're mission driven. You know, I haven't taken a salary or anything like that. And you know, we've done a lot of preparation of the environment for Los Angeles, which is a very hard area to break into. Yeah. I mean, you got 3 cannabis markets. You got NorCal, SoCal, and LA, and you got to know the right people in LA. But there's some celebrities that we're hearing that are big fans of ours, and we're going to get together with them and do some events and really make a big impact. And that could be really special because the big thing we need right now is money. You know, even people want to donate to Bowder Brothers Foundation. Unfortunately, cannabis margins aren't that great. You do the best you can to keep the lights on and try to keep going.
The taxes are ridiculous, especially in California. You know,
way overtaxed, way overregulated, and yeah, but it's fine. We'll make it through. But I know once we hit that level where we've got our research funded, we're on a whole different plateau. And,
if you guys are the exclusive brand in the VA,
yeah.
Pick your plane.
Yeah. No, it would be good. And the main thing, it's like, you know, we're able, you know, as we're growing, we're able to hire more vets, and that's what we want to do is having veterans making medicine for veterans, and it's awesome for them where they feel like, you know, I might not be in camis anymore, but I feel like I'm still serving my country. One of our reps, Maria Stabler, she's been in the industry for a while. She's becoming more of our head of sales in Southern California right now, and you know, her cousin's Kenny Stabler, so from the Raiders, but her father won the Medal of Honor in Vietnam. And she shared one story where they got cut off, like him and 2 other guys from their unit, and were just surrounded. They heard the dogs coming. They had to bury themselves underground for 3 days. And I was like, I don't know, maybe they're using bamboo shoots as a breathing apparatus. I mean, these are dogs. You're not just throwing dirt on yourself and hoping for a good thing. Like, you got to get under.
Right.
And he came out, got his guys up, and they ran, and they went down to a main supply route and saw another Army convoy and jumped up and down and got rescued. But he was technically missing in action for 3 days. And, you know, it's like I've been around a lot of guys, and I've seen some really heroic stuff. I've never met a Medal of Honor person. I mean, they're that rare. So, but she's like, you know, she took a pay cut to come with us, and she's like, I just know this is where I'm supposed to be. This is my home, and we're starting to get more of that. So I just think, you know, 23 is going to be a good year for Helmand Valley Growers Company.
Yeah. You know, I was just thinking, I wonder if you know somebody that I recently met. Are you familiar with a gentleman by the name of Raul Martinez Jr. that owns Rogue Methods?
No.
My good friend Sean Whalen arranged this. He came to Salt Lake a couple weekends ago, and I had the privilege of being trained by him for 2 days.
Yeah.
He's basically a situational awareness trained guy. Like we worked on keeping, you know, disarming people, you know, how to handle the leverage of your body, you know, wrestling, understanding, you know, line of sight with guns and all that to like, you know, creating a holster on your, all this stuff. And he served a lot of time over in Afghanistan. And it's interesting to listen to your story and to listen to his because he says he's got a crazy combat mind, like the way that he works. And you just listen to this guy speak, and you're like, dude, that basement's this deep.
Yeah.
And he'd said more than one time that he feels like he's like, the U.S. government invested so much in my brain. I feel it's my responsibility to give back.
Yeah.
And so he's created this business where he's basically helping people how to be prepared.
Yeah.
And, you know, handling tourniquets, handling high chaos situations, handling like anything that can happen. Like 99% of the United States population is daft. They don't know how to handle it. They're waiting for the first responder to come.
Yeah.
And, you know, Raul says, like, you are your own first responder.
Yeah.
So his sort of mentality about that, I feel a portion of it from you in that, like, so you learned certain aspects in combat and as a soldier, and you decided that your way of giving back was different, but you're still giving back based off of what your experience was.
Yeah. You know, the big thing to me is like you have all these great men and women raise their right hand, and obviously after September 11th, 2001, you knew you were going to be in the sandbox at some point.
Yep.
And they go forward and do all these great things, and then they come back and, physically they've returned, but spiritually they haven't. And then they, get on a VA cocktail. They're getting their disability payments, and they're hanging out in their apartment, and they're drinking vodka, and eventually they're like, what am I even doing here anymore? And they take their lives, and that's just unacceptable. I mean, these are some great Americans. So I think it's our duty to help them live the American dream that they fought so hard to defend. So that's why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, I honor what you're doing, man. There's something that I think is overlooked in that by just the normal citizen. There's a great book called Tribes by a man named Sebastian Junger.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people miss, and that is a key, it's a requirement for a fulfilling life, is that of purpose.
Yep.
That if you don't have a purpose or don't feel like you have a purpose, your life will spiral very quickly, and you will allow yourself to engage in habits that are destructive, and you'll find yourself in all sorts of things. It's not like soldiers need help having mental illness challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's like, when you're deployed, you have a purpose.
Yeah.
There's a hierarchy, you have brotherhood, you have all of these really important requirements for fulfilling life. And then you get out of it, and there you go.
Yeah.
And you're just left alone.
Yeah.
And so one of the things, there's different angles of this that I find to be, required. And so I'm seeing yours, well, let's actually have another arrow in the quiver for medicine that's actually healthy, that can help them to have relief. That relief, you don't know where that relief is going to spin them. Yeah. It could spin them into a place of happiness. It could spin them into self-awareness that allows them to make their personal relationships better. It could get them back in shape. Just by allowing relief for a short period of time to something that they gave to their country, and they're feeling like the country said, hey, thanks, but fuck off.
Yeah.
There's that, okay? And then you have other aspects of that. You got to, provide them community where it's not just, veteran community is great and there's a lot of support there. But one of the things that I think is somebody outside of it, because I'm not a veteran, I'm, the son of one, and I've appreciated the, efforts that have been made for our country and for myself and my freedoms by other people. Having said that, it's we don't have the veteran community. It's almost built on sadness in a way. It's this sort of shared misery. You were there too, bro. Yeah. And it's which is great at a point, but I love the idea of having it spin into something more, which it sounds like with what you're doing with the Battle Brothers Foundation, you're providing them some sort of community there that allows for purpose and allows them to make money and allows them to grow and to be better. So there's that aspect of it. And there's the spiritual side of it too. It's where they start to realize they really are important.
Absolutely.
As an individual.
Absolutely.
I think that, a lot of the work that I've done in my career over the years has been relating to people and their identities and allowing them to feel differently about themselves on a core level. There's a very simple sort of thing that says if you want to change anyone's behavior, you don't start by focusing on the behavior. It starts at the level of identity. If you see yourself differently, that governs your values, and your values govern your beliefs, and your beliefs then govern your behaviors. And so if you can get someone to think differently about themselves, you cut the line as far as personal transformation. And when I see a lot of what happens in the veteran community, I love the idea of what you're doing with Battle Brothers and that, because that's what they need. They need a new identity.
That's so well thought out. Because that's, I tell guys, it's difficult. You're losing your identity. I've seen it with athletes. You're up here, you're doing all this great thing. People are talking and writing all about you, and then it ends. And then it's kind of Superman gave up his powers. He just it got drained out of him. And
his name was Tom Brady, by the way.
That's the thing that we're just kind of really trying to pay attention with these veterans, and things I preach to them is listen, I grew up, I played for a massive high school football program. Nationally ranked all the time. And some people might have thought that's the pinnacle of their life. I'm that was just a chapter. The military, I did some cool stuff, whatever, fine. That's just another chapter in my life. Now I want to write the next chapter. And it's you got to look at your life. By the time it's over, if someone did write a book about your life, would anyone want to read it? Well, go out there and make it. You can be the author and make things happen. Right. I'll never forget when I was in Villanova, and everyone talks about Intel and then you're thinking special ops, but you're like, oh, Intel's like CIA, like all crazy. You think it's like hardcore. And we had this really, I got to tell a story. It was hilarious. He was a Navy sub commander, and he was an Intel guy, and he came in to tell us a story about what he did in Intel. One of the funny moments, he's like, like Cold War is breaking up, and we had some wires that we had underneath the sea that we could go listen to the Soviet Union, and we were kind of debating, do we want to keep this or not? So he's like, so I had to go to the White House to brief, and he's like, I'm like a lieutenant commander, I'm no one. And he's like, so when we get there, we can only take one car past the gate to go up to the Oval Office. So he's like, I literally had to sit on Colin Powell's lap, like in the back of a car. And he's like, I just look at Colin Powell, and he's like, well, are you comfortable? And he's like, yeah, yes, General. And he's like, so we go up there, we walk in, and President Clinton's not in there yet, but they're like, all right, guys, what'd you guys like to eat? And Colin Powell's like, yeah, I'll take a Big Mac. And like they were just ordering from McDonald's, like this is the thing. And he's like, yeah, I guess I'll take a couple cheeseburgers and stuff. Like, seriously? Like, we're doing this? And he's like, McDonald's comes in, and then Bill Clinton just walks in and grabs a stack of fries. He's like, all right, what we got? And, he's just like, it was just like, wait, hold on. But
sorry, I'm late. I just was having a cigar.
Yeah, right. got a little intense. But he just said, like, afterwards, they agreed to keep the program, and we're like, oh wow, that's cool. He's like, well, what's cool about that? He's like, I just told the story. I didn't do it. He's like, so you want to go do it, or do you want to just kind of write about what other people are doing? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll go this path or something like that. So I tell people, you got plenty of living to do. Go do it. And then especially with these veterans, I mean, selfless service. These are great Americans. There's a lot of potential they can do for our society. Let's help them get there so they can do it.
It's so true, man. Like I think that very few people understand how much is available to them.
Yeah.
Like it's still America.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's still the land of opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's becoming extremely difficult, or more, I won't say extremely, it's becoming more difficult to discern between friend and foe when it comes to the voices that we have out there with the media and politicians and everything. You're like, is this guy full of shit, or does he actually have my best interest?
Yeah.
He doesn't have your best interest, in case you're wondering. But that to me is where it's even more important to like have a sense of self, have an identity associated with the fact that you bring more to the table than you take.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a rarity to have people understand and think that way.
Yeah.
And so that's why, one of the key pieces of being a successful person that I've learned is you have to be in a community of people that like get you. And that's one of the reasons why I was glad you were willing to come, because Battle Brothers does that. This is Helmand Valley is it's cool.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah,
it's been fun. So it's there's a lot more work to be done, but we're doing all the little steps and working with the politicians and that. But I mean, I think you just bring up such a great point. It's like people need to start being critical thinkers a little bit more and doing their own research and understanding. People might just push things because they're trying to reach their own agenda, not necessarily.
Well, dude, I mean, look at what we talked about earlier in this conversation. The reason why cannabis isn't legal federally is because of lobbyists from pharma.
Yep.
These juggernauts that have more, their GDP is bigger than some countries, their power that they can do. Yeah. And you're telling me it's not just as easy to buy a doc as it is to buy a politician? Get out of here, And like the idea that we can see that clearly now, it's just a matter of like opening our mouths. I've referenced my friend Sean, like Sean Whalen. He preaches all the time, like speak your truth, get on your phone, share it. Like he's like, get it out there. Yeah. Say what's on your mind, because a lot of times we're like, I feel super alone in this. Nobody thinks that I must be crazy. I'm thinking this. And everybody's thinking what's right in front of our faces. We look at a lot of the adjustments that need to be made in our government and our civic leaders. It's because we don't get involved.
Yeah.
We I've had this joke for a long time. Like, you never have a good person as a politician. Like, it just attracts the shitty people.
Yeah.
Like, well, then be one of the good ones. It's like, well, it's not just that, because a good person can go play in the mud and get dirty then.
Yeah.
So then we need more than just that. And it's not at the, 535 of those fucks or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's on our level.
Yeah.
It's like our city treasurer.
Yeah.
Like when we vote, do we know who we're voting for in the candidate for our local stuff? Like the school boards? Like And not that I want everybody to become activists, because activists are just fucking insufferable. But at least be an activist for your own interests that are good, you know?
You nailed it. I mean, that's where people ask me, like, what's your political party? And I'm like, it's America.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not Team Democrat. I'm not Team Republican. I'm so tired of it. I'm like, people will just go into the ballot and just straight line. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm a Democrat. I'm voting all Democrats. I'm like, I look at individual politicians and what can they do. And I sit on a veteran advisory board for a Democrat back in Pennsylvania. I work with Republicans. I mean, if we're having mutually alignment things and I can help and you can help me, let's get something together. I'm not going to go around and try to convince, a Congressman Sessions out of Texas who pretty much said, cannabis is the devil's lettuce and everyone's going to die from it. All that guy has no understanding
Grandpa
what he's talking
Jeff,
about.
that guy?
Yeah, again, that guy too, right? I mean, it's just like, you're like, they don't care. They're not looking at it. And like, it just speaks volumes that how little a congressman like that cares about veterans. If he would come out and make such a bullish statement like that, forget you, man. Like, I have no time for it. And I think with all the momentum, and one guy is pretty tight in D.C., but he's like, I wouldn't be surprised by 2024 if cannabis, if you're not for it, it's political suicide. Because it's like you got 75% of Americans who are into it. I think like all but like 5 or 6 states have some sort of program in there. It's happening. And even some of the hard no guys where you're like, hey, where are you at now? Like, got to look into it. Code word. Don't pin me down right now. Like, I got to kick the can.
I don't want to lose my money.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I love what you said. I mean, all politics are local, and if someone isn't working the way you want them to work, get them out of their job. I mean, they work for us. Yeah. And we were going out to do a lobby day out in D.C. A couple of people were like, I'm worried. Oh, man, we're going to talk to these people. I'm like, we're their boss. Like, go in there with that mindset.
Yeah, that's how effective the media is they reverse that in your mind. That, like, we're supposed to, like, kowtow or give acquiescence to some sort of, like, like, the politicians are the lowest of the low, dude. They're the biggest of the pieces of shit. What was I going to say? I had a thought that come up about that. That doesn't matter.
And there it goes.
And there it goes.
I call that my traumatic brain injury trap. Like, it's like, TBI trap.
Yeah.
It fell out somewhere, guys. Sorry, I don't know where it is, but
actually, it's funny because I've had that happen several times on this podcast, and I just tell them, I'm like, leave it in. Leave it in fucking 50 years when I got Alzheimer's. Like, we saw it. We saw it.
There it was.
Just flew away. But the general theme of what I was considering with that, though, was that, I remember what I was going to say now. As a conservative, I think that you're right. If the right would champion weed, get out.
They're making common sense legislation. That's where they're on. Like, 'cause I was like, if I took a straw poll, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more Democrats in Congress who were before cannabis than there were Republicans. But it's like, let's not look at a quantity, let's look at quality. I mean, you got a bill, I'm in California.
Yeah.
They love to tax. They love to overregulate. Yep. They love to make business hard in California. You have the MORE Act, which does some stuff, but they're looking at a 5% federal tax on mature into an 8% tax, which is pretty high. And then you have the bill that Senator Schumer and Senator Booker put out, and they're calling for a 25% federal tax. On top of what California is spending, which is at retail, you're probably spending anywhere between 40 to 65% tax. So you're going to throw another 25 on top of that. It's like, do you understand? You are just making an amazing place for the illicit market and the cartels to thrive.
On top of that, you're making it big business only.
And you're making it big business. So it's like, I thought the Democrats were supposed to be for the mom and pops because I haven't seen that in a while.
Yeah.
Then you have someone like a Nancy Mace. She just got reelected, but she's finishing up her first term. And it's called the State Reform Act. And it'll decriminalize. Cannabis will be, VA doctors can prescribe. Removed from all schedules, and it's a 3% federal tax, which is fine because it gets rid of tax code 280E. You don't have to deal with that anymore. So it's just like a regular business with a 3% federal tax. That's fine. That can work. But I'm like, that's common sense, and it's going to allow mom and pop shops to have a chance, just not the big corporations.
Yeah. Well, these guys get like they get headlights, and they're like a deer within the headlights when they think of all this tax revenue they get. But
absolutely,
they're strangling the medicine out of the market at that point.
And you don't see it on the streets. They don't know how much a gallon of milk costs. They don't get it, and that's where, they're like a guy. I tell everyone to look up. He's a really good congressman named Dave Joyce, Republican out of Ohio. I've spoken with him many times. I work with his office a lot. I mean, they are so well educated. I mean, when we walked in there to meet with them, one, I was kind of doing a thing when I was out in DC, like, I don't want to go and lobby someone from this state and be like, you need to get a cannabis program. Like, that's a state issue. Yeah. Like, let their governor and all them, they got to figure it out. But I was like, let's just go work with people who have some sort of cannabis legislation and see if we can throw fire on it. So we went to Senator Booker's office. He didn't meet with us. His staff did. So that kind of spoke a lot to me. When we were going to Representative Joyce's office, I mean, he literally sent out an email saying, guys, I have to go to the floor to vote. I'm sorry, it's kind of like my job, but my staff is waiting for you. And we walked in there, books open. Hey, this is what we're doing. This is who we need to connect you with. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, it was just a working party for an hour.
That's awesome.
And, you know, he says it himself. He goes, I'm not a politician. I'm a legislator. So when he was a prosecutor in Ohio, he's like, I never prosecuted small cannabis crimes. He's like, I could go into a 7-Eleven and ruin some kid's life forever. He's like, you know, it took the police a little bit to come around to it, but I'm like, let's just kind of be a little tactically deliberate here, and we'll eventually find the dealers, and we're going to find a lot more than illegal marijuana. And he's like, so I get voted into Congress, and he's like, and I take my job serious. I represent this district in Ohio, and this district in Ohio happens to be pro-cannabis. So cannabis legislation comes out, I vote for it. He's like, I go back into my office. I get an email from Speaker Boehner's office saying, come see me. He's like, I go in there. Speaker of the House is like, what the fuck? Like, we're Republicans. What are you doing? He's like, no, I'm representing my people, and that's what they said, so I'm voting for it. And he goes, man, where's Speaker Boehner now? And I'm like, oh, he's making millions of dollars in the cannabis community. He goes, that's right. Would have been really nice if the Speaker of the House had a different tune while Speaker of the House.
Oh, dude, in Utah, we're in a specifically interesting spot with that because of the presence that the LDS Church has here.
Oh, sure.
So if I remember right, Greg was telling me this, there was only like 8 or 10 like legal licenses that were made available to grow to have dispensaries here, and the grow licenses were even less.
Wow.
So, and when you start looking into it, like I think it was I might be full of shit here, so if I'm wrong, you guys can fact check me. But I'm not. I'm in the ballpark. I know when I say that, even if I don't have the specifics right, that it was like $250,000 or something per license, and all of the companies that have the licenses are like hidden in layers of LLCs, so you can't find out who they are.
Yeah.
And there's whispers like, oh, of course, because it's the Romneys and the Huntsmans and all this big Mormon money here in Utah that can't be associated with weed because that's bad for the church. But yet at the same time, like they're going to make their money because it's ridiculously profitable if they do it right.
Yeah.
And then additionally, Greg was telling me this, that there's been like the LDS Church itself is trying to start up a farm in Uruguay, like a weed farm. And they're wanting to do it so they can give people their jobs. And that would, as a sign of goodwill, be better for the church, so they'd be potentially be able to get more members of the church out of this. And I'm like, this shit is bananas,
This
man.
is
like,
crazy.
Just stop. I remember my dad as an example. So my, being that I live in Utah, in a former life, I was a Mormon. I went on a mission to Brazil. You know, my first wife and I, we were active in that church. I was married in the temple. And the second, you know, my second marriage, which is who I've been married to now close to 18 years, none of that. Well, at the beginning there was, but that's neither here nor there. So my parents still are, and a large, you know, the community here has a lot of people, even if they're not currently active in that church, they were.
Yeah.
So there's certain vernacular you can use that everybody understands. Well, my dad, before he moved up here to Utah, you know, as I was sharing with you at the beginning of this, like he was trying to find medicine. He wanted to try to get legal weed out of Arizona when they lived there, because they lived there several years ago. And they went to their ecclesiastical leader, the church leader. Yeah. Because in Mormonism, I don't know how much familiarity you have with it. They have a thing, they call it their law of health, the word of wisdom, basically. It's like, you know, no coffee, no drinking, like the whole thing, right? And no smoking and tobacco and all that. And my dad's like, well, can I get this? Because it's better than these opiates. And the church leader's like, well, as long as you don't smoke it. If you can eat it, it's fine. And it's like, I laugh at the hypocrisy of that, and then knowing that the church is doing all this other stuff, of course, to make money and to have like goodwill points for these communities. Yeah. And then you have these other really high profile members of the church that are, you know, behind the scenes getting their weed money, doing what they're doing. And it's like, just fucking legalize it already. Stop this. This is our own version of the cartel.
Yeah.
We have a political cartel that's holding at bay certain things while they're all making money off the dole with their little things they have in these states that they have ventures in.
Exactly. I mean, look what we learned from alcohol prohibition. What did we do? We just made
we got NASCAR out of it. That's a good thing, right?
You got NASCAR, Dukes of Hazzard, all that good stuff. But it's like you literally just made an area to encourage illegal activity and allow illegal organizations to profit off of it.
Right.
We're doing the same thing with cannabis. I mean, it's like, guys, enough. Pandora's out of the box.
Yep.
Let's get into the right thing. Let's be common sense here and regulate this and just go forward with it, and it won't be that big of a deal. And you're going to probably save some lives because of the medicinal value to it. And you typically see, areas where they open up cannabis operations, you'll see opiate deaths drop, and you'll see, things like alcohol-related, all that stuff. So there is some positive that's getting spun from this. And that's why, again, I say look at a guy like Dave Joyce who, he's working with a guy like Hakeem Jeffries who's a progressive, but they're putting together a thing called the Prepared Act, where it's like, we know this is going to end, so we want to start putting things in motion that when we do say prohibition's over, this is how we're going to implement the whole program. So there are more things moving behind, around, just not as fast. But then again, you kind of have to look at all these people of like, what's your motivation? And, again, like that guy Sessions, he's either, I don't care, I hope he sees this, he's either really dumb or someone got into his ear and said, this is what you need to say. Because every time a cannabis program goes legal in a state, pharmaceutical will lose $2 billion.
Which makes him dumb for listening to that guy. So he's just dumb.
Yep.
Actually, I'll share this story with you because we're in South Jordan, Utah right now, and I live close to our studio here. But before we moved into the house we have now, we used to live over Mill Creek. And Mill Creek is a place where it's got a lot of money, a lot of old money. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that I was I was in my late 30s, early 40s when we lived there. We were the odd men out. Like the elementary school had no kids for it was just a lot of old people there, right?
Yeah.
And so any of the younger people in the neighborhood we would meet just because it's like, you're not 70. And I ended up meeting this guy that ended up becoming a good friend of mine. Yeah. Fantastic dude. One of the biggest dealers in Utah.
Oh, wow.
He was moving about 200 to 250 pounds a month in cannabis. Oof. And he had this he would get a lot of the surplus out of California. So like legal grow operations, there's like ways that they can fudge the books or whatever with how they report it. And so they'd have these trains that would come up this. And so he knew the weed was safe. Mm-hmm. He knew it wasn't some 6 hands touched it type thing.
Yeah.
And he had a relative as well that was in the narcotics division of some of the law enforcement here. So like he was pretty much protected. He was in there. And I asked him, because this was before anything was legal in Utah as far as weed, cannabis, and any of that stuff. And I go, are you concerned about that, man? He's like, is that going to die? He's like, bro, you kidding me? He's like, I'm going to print money when that happens. He's like, they are going to tax the shit out of this. And like, all of my clients are now not going to have to worry about if they're caught with it.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, what about you if you get caught? He's like, they don't give a shit about me. I'm a mid-level guy. Yeah. My numbers, and they don't care. He's like, I'll spend a day in jail for every pound that I have.
Yeah.
That I get busted with. And I'm like, there it is. Okay.
That's really that. Wow. I didn't think about that because that's so true in terms of the possession. No one cares if you have it anymore. So yeah, it's like, wow. I haven't thought about it that way. So
I guess the point of that is there's two sides of this. Like for companies like yours and companies like Greg's and other that we know, like it would be in your self-interest to push against a lot of the tax stuff because that's just nonsensical. It's like fix your state budget someplace else. Like I remember when Colorado was first legal with recreation several years ago, they were boasting like their budget was over, like they were giving money back to the citizens of the state because they had too much from all the money they were making with cannabis. And it's like, well, balance your budgets with the sensible cannabis tax, not just expecting it to be all the bloating with California. You guys are in a world of hurt with all that anyway because of all the spend and everything.
And like, please stop taxing our medicine.
Right.
I mean, what else? What other medicine are you guys taxing?
Right.
I mean, we don't do that.
I know you have President Biden talking about how we need to have lower price on insulin, and then you're like, okay, that's a needed medicine. Like, but we're going to tax the fuck out of weed.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, that guy he had some crazy. It was funny because he was like a born again Christian, like really heady guy. He believed in some gnarly shit. That friend that I was telling you about. I always used to get a kick, man, because I'd go pick up my dime bag from him before it was, and I'd sit in his garage and we'd just sit there and he would tell me these stories and he would fidget with his hands. And I'm like, this guy's the most interesting man I've ever met. And he was sitting, dude, he had like walls of cash because his business was ridiculously profitable.
Absolutely.
But he just had this rundown, not even rundown, it was nice, but this little tiny house in Mill Creek that was,
damn.
Yeah. But I bet you that there's a lot of examples like that. It's like the tax problem doesn't reduce consumption. It changes where you buy it.
That's all it is. And there's two things. I mean, yeah, I had some friends who they're like, why would I get into the legal business? Like, what? I mean, like, really don't get fined that bad. They don't really care.
Right.
And then all the hoops you got to jump through. But for me, the big thing is the safety issue. Sure. Where we talk to municipalities who won't incorporate or won't allow cannabis operations, like something will fill that void. And in 2020, I think we had the whole like vape gate crisis where people's lungs were exploding and it's all due to vitamin E acetate or heavy metals, and not one in the state of California came from a legal dispensary because we send our stuff to a third-party state tester. So it's like you guys are out taxing this thing and making it even more unsafe because you're going to force the consumers to go somewhere where they don't even know what they're putting in their body. And I just don't understand what you guys are thinking. And you see states like Oklahoma. I mean, they've kind of slowed down recently, but they were like in a hyper growth with their tax plans and everything the way it worked. It was just very much like a business, and people were doing well. I had a buddy. He just said, "To hell with this." He had to shut down his 200,000 square foot grow in California, and because the price of flower just bottomed out. And he took a job over in Florida with a big company. And I'm like, "How is it?" He's like, "It's great. It's like a regular organization. It's a regular business. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff or whatever's going to happen." He's like, "It's thriving." So it's like, again, California. But that's why I looked at that bill Schumer and Booker put together. I'm like, you guys created a bill that's California on steroids, and that's not a compliment.
Yeah, that is not. Here's the piece that I wish that more people could see. Mm-hmm. If you really, if you go back and listen to the last 10, 15 minutes of this conversation, right? What you'll see is that the biggest fact is that this medicine fucking works. Mm-hmm. It works so much that these states are trying to tax the hell out of it. And it works so much that the people that know that it works so much are willing to buy it illegally to get it for cheaper.
Yeah.
And it's not psychologically addictive. Yeah. No, excuse me. It is psychologically addictive. It's not physically addictive.
Yeah.
There's really no downside other than the munchies.
Yeah. Yeah. Then
which they wreak havoc on your midsection.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And which it's fun too. But it's like this whole thing would look different if the medicine part didn't work.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how politicians can't see that. It's like, well, wait, so these people are going for it anyway. It's not addictive. We know it's not addictive. And they're still doing all this to try to do it. And people are doing all this to try to provide that, meaning that there's an opportunity because the demand is there. Mm-hmm. And we as the lawmakers are slowing that down by being greedy.
Yep.
Or trying to just be power hungry and say, no, because we want to be big dad or whatever.
It's like the circle of life keeps coming back to pharmaceuticals. I mean, that's why I say once we show there's a viable product that they can manufacture and mass produce and profit from.
Big Pharma's going to get in.
Yeah, absolutely. They're going to be
and they're going to fuck it up.
Green light and let them go. Yeah. And that's how it's going to happen. And then we'll see how it goes from there.
Oh, man, that actually kind of scares me, if I'm honest, because pharma is one of those industries that they have no moral compass.
Yeah.
Like you look at what's going on, like in a lot of like the transgender issues for children.
Oh yeah,
and the transitioning and the drugs and everything. It's like I read this article that said that basically, if for every child that transitions below the age of 18, that's at least $3 million to pharma per person. So all of this drive isn't about progressive sort of acceptance of transgender as a thing and that like they're honoring these children and their experiences, and it's none of that shit. It's fucking money.
Dude, that's dark. That is really I honestly never thought of that. I mean, I just figured, hey, you're pushing these things out. I mean, my kid identifies as zebra. I'm not going to turn him to a zebra tomorrow.
Right.
It's just like they're kids. And, even probably one of the coolest classes I ever took, I'll tell you, University of Massachusetts, before I went to Villanova, I was playing football up there.
I was in Springfield for a part of my mission before I went to Brazil. I had to hang out in Boston for a bit. But.
Yeah. So we had a course called Abnormal Psych. And it was a guy named Professor Haljan. And he actually, I'm sure he's done other things, but I remember that movie, Cider House Rules?
Yeah.
So he had to go basically show Erykah Badu, like, this is how you would respond if your father was sexually abusing you and stuff like that. And he's like, and I had no idea who Erykah Badu was. I told him, like he went up to some other lady, started talking to her, and they're like, Erica's over there. And he's like, sorry. But his class was Monday, Wednesday, Friday at like 9 a.m. And we all know what we're doing, especially Thursday nights in college. It didn't matter how hungover you were. You're like, I'm going to this class. Because he would like break down Charlie Manson.
Interesting.
He would do a thing like Rick Dees or one of these like DJ guys. He would always say, this song's for you. And this one lady was obsessed that was his signal to her. And she drove across country to go find him and marry him and try to kill him and stuff. And like, just you're like, what? Like, just a wacky stuff about people. But we did have that section about transitioning. And, back then he's like, really it's only like John Hopkins, maybe the University of Chicago, who will do something, but you're going to have to go through a year of therapy and psychologically study and understanding, some of this you don't come back from. And he told a story about this baby was born as a hermaphrodite.
Okay.
And the parents just made the call and they're like, chop it off. And okay, that was it. It was a girl. So the child's growing up and just never felt comfortable. And at one point, he's like in his 20s, and he's like, I am a man, and what the hell? Like, he just couldn't figure it out. And he walked into the doctor's office. Doctor hasn't seen him since he was an infant. And the doctor looks and just starts bawling his eyes out because he realized what he did, and it haunted him that they made a decision without someone being fully prepared or letting them understand. So all this stuff, where, you're getting pressure from the media because it's trendy and cool. I don't know what's going on in the schools. I mean, I know how my kid's school is, and that's fine. But now when you hear this stuff with the pharmaceuticals really trying to probably push that campaign, which kind of makes sense, and it's advertisement money, all that stuff. I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole COVID shot. I won't call it a vaccine. I mean, you saw some of these undercover things going on about kids. Like, that means billions of dollars to give an infant to 5 a mandated shot. Yeah. It is. I mean, you're going to say it's the worst of the worst right there.
So when we think about that, we think about food, and we think about what the way that our medicine is in how it's just about train. You get on one medicine and it causes a side effect. We got a medicine for that side effect, and next thing you know, you're taking 15 pills.
Yeah,
and it's even now we see that in the marketing relative to some of the side effects of the jab, where myocarditis is huge everywhere now, and so now there's all these like youth medicines, and there's marketing coming from Pfizer and from Moderna saying like, oh, we have this thing to help you with your myocarditis as a 6-year-old, and this little girl's voice like, I didn't know if I was going to be able to live out my dream as being a ballerina, and now I can because of this great medicine that comes from Pfizer. And it's like, they have no morality. Like, they're fucking evil. And so when I think about them getting their hands on something as sacred as cannabis, that scares me.
Yeah.
Because they're going to turn it into some monster.
Yeah.
It's going to make you need other stuff that they're going to keep needing.
It's hard to debate. You look at a track record. It's not like a fluke. It's a trend. It's
well, even during COVID, I got so much shit because I was like, you realize, guys, the companies putting these out are the highest fined companies by the U.S. government of all time. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah.
We're talking billions upon billions of dollars of what they get slapped with. And you know what they do when they get the fine? They go, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
They pay it and it's done.
Yeah, it's a rounding error for them.
Yeah, oops, that was a bar tab I missed.
No big deal. I mean, it's really, and that was really disturbing just how things are going. And even right now, I hear people getting back up. Oh, COVID's coming. Everyone's got to get their shot. I'm like, why? Why would I get that? Yeah. I mean, I already did. You know what? I did. I was one of the first ones to go in. I looked at myself as military. I mean, listen, I've been vaccinated for anthrax.
I love how you're like, I did, like you admitting something wrong. Like, you did nothing wrong.
I literally felt, but it was just like, ugh. But I'm like, you know what? I'll take one for the team here.
Yeah.
I did it. I mean, I ended up getting the Omicron in January. I mean, I probably got the vaccine or the shot back in like February of 20 or whatever, or 21, whenever it first came out. But I would never, ever, ever put that in my kids. Like, even if the state of California mandated, I mean, there's no way they would win that one, but there is something messed up with here. I'm glad I'm doing this on camera because we can go back and look at this, because there's going to be some really disappointed people probably in their mid-20s when maybe things just aren't working the way they should or something. I mean, we have no idea. And, I mean, you even see these people getting questioned, like head of Pfizer. Did you do any testing before that went out that it would stop the spread of the virus? Like, no.
We had to do it at the speed of science.
Yeah, it is so bad. It is so, and that's why I'm glad. Like, I don't know if you saw New York State like 2 or 3 weeks ago. The Supreme Court of New York State said if you fired someone for not getting the...
You have to pay it back.
Yep, you got to pay it back
God
and give them
bless
their
it.
job back. And I'm like, there you go.
Yep.
And that helps out. I got some friends in California who are working cases for people, religious freedom stuff, and they got fired. It's like, well, there's a precedent. You know,
Yep.
it's the New York Supreme Court, so...
Wow. Well, it's an interesting thing because, like, cannabis plays, like, a role in this entire state of affair, if you think about it.
Yep.
And I love the idea of taking that piece off the board. Like, that it's like, it's no longer a thing. It's just it just works now.
Yep.
Like, you can try to make demonize or whatever, or tax the hell, whatever. It's over here now. It's good. Mm-hmm. And I think that it ultimately will be because of how it's undeniable.
100%. Like I said, I think it's just getting to the point where you have such an overwhelming majority of this population is all for it. And they're like, just legalize the damn thing. Yeah. Again, everyone, politicians work for us. They will have to get in line eventually. But
people don't realize that 535 people versus 330 million.
Exactly.
I'll take those odds.
Exactly. And some of these people, they ain't the brightest people I've been around.
They're so unremarkable.
So
your boy Fetterman there in Pennsylvania,
oh,
man.
Lord.
Good job.
Yeah,
PA.
what they say, like he could be president. Like everyone's like, oh, he has what it takes to be president of the United States. I'm like, would you have that guy? And I'm not saying Dr. Oz was the answer either, but it's like, would you take that man, John Fetterman, as your lawyer into court and have him defend you?
I wouldn't
How
let
could
that
you?
guy
I
mow
mean,
my lawn, bro.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
he literally got up.
missing.
He's like, the Eagles are better than the Eagles. It's like, did you mean the Steelers and Eagles? Like, like, you know, just like, there's not two of them. There's one.
Good night. Yeah, good night.
It's like, you know, so yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I remember heard a congressman. He talked about it was a great one. He's you got this admiral up there, and he's testifying, and he's trying to get some more money. So he's a little tin cup out there, and he's gonna be respectful. And we want to expand and put more Marines onto Guam, and it's kind of a forward base out there in the Pacific. And I just couldn't believe. I mean, and I blame his staff too, because the way he was talking, like, "Haha, I got you." And he goes, "Are you worried about?" He goes, "How long is Guam?" And the admiral's like, approximately this many miles. I don't have the exact. I can get it for you." He's like, "What's the width of Guam?" He goes, "Again, I think it's roughly this, but I don't have the exact numbers." When you see the admiral, like, where are we going? And he goes, "Have you taken into consideration that if you add more of these troops, the island might capsize and fall over?"
This was a real thing.
100%. You can Google it. And he's like, "No, Congressman, we haven't thought about Guam capsizing, but we could definitely look into today." He's like, "Yes, please do. Please do."
Senator Fetterman, we're not.
Just like, I mean, this is like, it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago, but I'm just like, oh man, they had no idea. And then like, I always tell people, if you ever, Jamie Dimon, who runs JP Morgan and Chase, ever watch him testify on Capitol Hill, it's worth the price of admission.
He's a G, dude.
He is so smart.
Yep.
I mean, when Maxine Waters was thundering down on him about student loan debt, and she's like, "Do you know these numbers?" He goes, "I do not." She goes, "Haha, you don't know." He goes, "Well, in the earlier 2000s, the majority of student debt was taken by the U.S. government." He's like, "Actually, U.S. government owns 92% of all the federal college debt. So can maybe you explain to me why college interest rates keep going up so high?" And she was like, oh. And I'm like,
right.
Dude, do not get in that guy's arena. But it's like, oh, but now we're going to give money to people to pay back their college loans because we keep jacking up all that. I'm like, it's like George Carlin makes a lot of sense these days, you know? It's
he was him, and I don't know if you remember Richard Jenny was another guy that did a lot of political commentary, comedy. But
yeah.
Carlin was the man, dude. He knew he saw it.
I mean, like he said, like most of the ones, he's like, they all went to the same schools. They're all part of the same golf clubs, yacht clubs. They all invest in the same businesses. He's like, we're just a part of their game. That's all it is.
And I get it. Like, there's a part of me. I mean, I do pride myself in trying to critically think.
Yeah.
Add in some cannabis, it gets even more fun.
Absolutely.
But I get it, dude. Like, humans, to quote Bill Maher, humans aren't good people.
Yeah.
And so if you consider that, like, we've created this structure within government that allows people to be completely self-serving, to enrich themselves in a ridiculous way, it's like nobody leaves government poorer.
Yeah.
Unless you're Trump.
Well, very true.
And we're just expecting them to have the moral high ground to not buy into that even a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, that's where it's like when I hear of things like, where we need systemic change or reform, that's where I think about it. I'm like, we need to like term limits. We need like things that are going to like stop that. Like there's humans are going to do what they're going to do. They're going to act in their own self-interest, and you're going to have to deal with things just because of the nature of who we are as people. Mm-hmm. But we can protect against our own bad judgment if we do it right. And there's certain things that in the government's like, there's no way that we're trying even remotely to stop this shit.
Yeah. No, I agree. If the founding fathers could resurrect themselves and go back and look at the Constitution and be like, put a term limit clause in there. Like they probably just never could even fathom. And it was like, they figured you go to Philly or Washington for 2 years and go back to Massachusetts back on your farm and like, get me out of here.
Yeah. Have you heard that bit that Joe Rogan does about that?
No.
He goes, if the founding fathers came back, they'd be like, you guys didn't write any new shit? Just like so surprised that we're so dumb to have not evolved with how like and I'm not talking about we're evolved in the sake of restriction.
Right.
I'm talking about like we make it so that the freedoms are still there, but we're protected against the more base instinct of the shittier humans.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff. But like I said, that's what kind of keeps us going. That's why we keep fighting. I mean, that's one thing I loved about the special ops community is especially it was just a critical thinking aspect and just being like, I mean, so many times we were dropped in austere environments and they're like, hey, there's someone bad doing something bad. Go find them and make sure they don't do bad things anymore. And that's kind of what you get. And you got to kind of, all right, let's start doing some intel and putting our resources together and figure out how to navigate this, not just geographic, but human terrain and make things happen. And that's what's kind of like, working with Congress. There's some people I don't really care to talk to them.
I love that you're coming at it as an approach that's not party-based. You're like, we're going to talk to this guy, we're going to talk to this guy.
Yep.
It's just because you never know which one is going to be the linchpin that finally like sets it off.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're already getting there. Like if you truly have, and I know you do, directive that says if you can provide this level of research that shows this, then we have the ammunition that we need to kind of shoot down all these other bullshit arguments that are there.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, that gives me so much more strength. Because then again, if the Congressman Sessions like and starts going on this thing, I'll be like, where is your institutional review board approved study that's been peer reviewed saying your statement's true? Because I got mine.
Because mine's right here,
mine's right
bro,
here.
and it says really cool. None of that.
Exactly. I mean, like even Fox News, I mean, some of the ridiculousness that Laura Ingram's passing out there. I mean, you smoke a joint, you're probably going to walk outside and create a mass shooting, and then it's like, I mean, she does such a false lead. Every night I'll go through and I just kind of skim all the networks, see what they're doing. And it goes like California cannabis, the death trap. And I'm like, all right, this should be good. So I kind of sat down. And, she's like, bum, 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 doom and gloom. People are dying in the streets. But then they get to the actual guy who's going to report. And the genesis of it was like, California cannabis is overtaxed, overregulated, and people are going to the illicit market. I'm like, duh, no kidding. Don't make it out like
well, dude, only like 80-year-olds listen to Laura Ingram.
Exactly.
So they're like, I know she's right. When I was a child, like they just can't handle the idea of somebody getting stoned and not being a loser.
But she's the one pushing the info, and sadly, this is where I talked to a couple offices, and we're going to work on some things together. But they're like, the whole thing that cannabis is worse than fentanyl is sticking.
Really?
And I'm like, you've got to be shitting me. And I'm like, well, according to our national laws, they're right. Cannabis is a Schedule 1, so maybe
Schedule 2 versus Schedule 1. It's right here, guys.
Maybe you should have a conversation. It's like we can have this conversation, but we are going to remove this from Schedule 1 and don't put it at Schedule 2, which would destroy the industry. Like, let's just get this thing down. But it's just pretty remarkable how people kind of digest and get their news and just.
Well, dude, like I said, man, like humans aren't good people. Like Laura Ingram, she's a piece of shit. We all know it.
Yeah,
she's a paid puppet.
Yeah,
and. No matter where you fall in your politics, like they're all like all the media stations are corrupt. Like they're not, and I don't mean that like they're selling kids or anything, but I mean like they have their own interests. They're trying to get paid. They're trying to be salacious. They're trying to wreak division.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, that's kind of where it was. I mean, like, there's some shows on all the channels I actually enjoy watching. Like Brett Baer, I think he does a good job as
he seems very moderate and reasonable.
Yeah, like that 3 or 6 o'clock news guy, right? But as who was it? It was actually on Bill Maher where they had a. Chris Wallace was on and, talking about like his father and, 60 Minutes and all that. And you see Chris kind of go, yeah, but 60 Minutes. He goes, oh, come on, knock it off. That put a lot of food on your table. He goes, no. He's like, 60 Minutes was very good for our family, but he's like, it wasn't probably the best thing for the American people. Because like back then, before 60 Minutes Phenom happened, all the channels like the ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox or whatever, they knew they had to put the news on, and most likely they were going to lose some money on it, but you had to play the news. So they didn't care. That's why Cronkite could just get on there and be like, Someone walked across the street.
Give the actual news.
Yeah, if someone walked across the street, got hit, and he's
Who,
he's
what,
in the
when,
hospital.
where, why.
Yeah,
There
it's
it
not
is.
like someone with a MAGA hat on and bad intentions and was probably paid by Trump through a Russian, and they went, just some crazy stuff.
Cheated on his taxes.
Yeah, but it's like, but he's like 60 Minutes was the first time it showed outlets that you could make money on news. And he's like, and then that's when things started. And now you hear news. Oh, look how they rated we are. Look at how much marketing we have. Oh, look at this. It's like, yeah, but how are your stories true? I mean, it's like you even see all the stuff with Trump, which we all know is bullshit with the Russian collusion.
Yeah,
people got Peabody Awards and all that stuff
they're
or whatever.
still pushing
and Pulitzer, yeah, and people still believe it. I'm like, guys, everyone with any brain would have known within 2 weeks of this whole thing being out, it wasn't true. We're really, really good at finding things out.
Yeah.
And if our American president was a Russian spy or had all this
Getting
connections,
pissed on by hookers. Like,
yeah, I'm
come
like,
on, that's so salacious.
The digital footprint that would have been so hard for that not to come up. I mean, it's like you look at a guy like what I compare it to. Remember, like Southern Methodist University when they got the death penalty for football.
Yeah.
The way these schools get caught is because there's that guy who's on the golf course or at the stadium, and he's the one who paid for that player. And it's like, I did that. Eventually, they're going to brag.
Yep.
Something would have came out where it'd been like, yeah, that happened, or this or that. And never.
Well,
did.
that's how we know Trump wasn't on Epstein's list.
Yeah,
because it would have been out if he was.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, see, like, oh wait, there's Biden, and there's Clinton, and there's.
And I mean, like I said, Trump. Like, I love his policies. I think he could have. I was hoping he would learn to evolve.
Just like all of them.
Yeah,
man.
if he could just evolve. I mean, you don't have to get in an argument with Jim Acosta. Like, dude, you're the president of the United States.
Well, even
He's
him
Jim
now,
Acosta.
like going at DeSantis and
that
stuff.
was the dumbest thing ever.
Beta, dude. What are you doing?
And that's where you know, and a lot of people who I know are super pro Trump guys. 5 of them, and I talked to them 5 separate times, and just unsolicited, they're the ones who kind of brought it up. They're like, man, like I always like come on his policies and just kind of deal with it. But it's like, it's like the one time of the, every 2 years that you're supposed to just be unified, and he throws that out there, and now it's kind of feeling like he's doing this for himself. And I'm like, no, I agree. It's like it's kind of not.
It's gonna fuck everybody. Like are you familiar with PragerU?
Yeah.
So there's a pundit that they have on there that's this young, he's got to be in his 20s, young looking guy, handsome, that he's mostly out of California, and he has a prediction, and it's kind of a spooky prediction. He predicts that what's going to happen is that, basically Trump's running, he's announced, DeSantis will run, there'll be a bunch of other candidates, and on the Republican side, it will be a bloodbath. There'll be no unification message. There'll be no sort of good vibes for the conservative movement, no sort of stacking up our wins for what happened during the shitty times of what Joe Biden was trying to do. None of the stuff that the Republican side should be doing with all the fodder that the left has given them over the last couple of years. And so they'll just come out of that primary beat up, and the Democrats won't run Joe Biden again. They will have a late candidate enter late into the race, and that candidate will be Michelle Obama.
I totally agree on the Republican side, because Trump is such just a battering ram up there. I think it's a little bit more difficult for the Democrats now of how well they performed in the midterms compared to some people said, no, this is what we were going to do. Some people had a massive red wave. But I'm like, how do you tell a guy like Biden you can't run again unless if he's just so far checked out, he's just
just put on his list of things to do. Oh, I'm not running.
Yeah,
cool.
I'm not running. No, just put him in a fake Oval Office. He won't know the difference.
Not a joke, man.
So
come on, corn
but
pop.
man, and you know what? It probably is because at times I think we are the United States of entertainment. I mean, if Michelle Obama ran,
well, dude,
she'll just win because she's an Obama.
Obama's running the country now anyway. They're so connected with everything as it is, and there's always questions about who's really running this with how Joe is and his soup for brains. But you look at that, it's like that's perfect.
Yeah.
Black woman president. Yeah. People would rally behind that all day just because of what it means for our country. And
that's why I thought Tim Scott would be an interesting one for Republicans. Because she kind of, I hate how we have to play identity politics, but okay, here we are.
Yeah.
But if you did that, remember Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black.
Yeah.
I would just like to be a moderator for one question and have Joe Biden and Tim Scott and be like, President Biden, Senator Tim Scott is running for president, and I'm sure he's going to vote for himself. Would you consider him black afterwards or not? And just see what he said.
Well, dude, that's when there was talk of I wish this would have happened with Trump Biden when they ran, but there was an upswell. I think it was on change.org where you can do those petitions or whatever.
Yeah.
They were trying to get Joe Rogan to moderate that debate.
Oh man.
Could you imagine?
I
dude?
remember hearing something about that.
That would have been the most epic thing
That
ever.
would have
'Cause
been
he'd
really
like,
good.
yo, dude, you're fucking wrong, man. Like, he would be involved. Like,
Yeah.
he would be the fact checker guy for both of these guys. It'd be awesome.
Well, that's what's great about Twitter. Kind of talking about the whole.
Yeah.
I mean, now I don't know. You can never tell me more people involved in a conversation is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, Biden got fact checked a couple times with this stuff. I'm like, that
gorgeous.
never happened
It was
before.
beautiful.
It never
It was
happened
so
before.
beautiful.
I was like, does everyone not see how obvious it is? And man, now we're going down that rabbit hole. But it's like media bias. I can win that argument in one name, Hunter Biden. That was Hunter
I'm not
Trump.
familiar. I've never seen any news
Exactly.
stories
No,
about
he's-
this
he's-
guy.
he's an outstanding-
Apparently, he likes to lose computers, though.
Yeah, and he's really good at oil and energy and stuff in the European market. So
It's true. He's done really well for himself.
Yes. Yeah.
His fashion sense, not so much into
No,
the diaper
no.
with the thing, but
Or his what?
Who am I to
What
judge?
did he get into? It was like his brother Bo's wife. He was sleeping with her,
Yeah.
and then she got scared he was going to commit suicide, so she took his handgun and threw it into a dumpster that was right outside of an elementary school, and it was found. And that one kind of got shoo-shooed away. But
Of course.
you can find that stuff. But I'm like, guys, this guy's a train wreck. I mean, I feel bad. He's an addict. He's got issues, but
Yeah. But he doesn't need to be in the spotlight and go arranging deals like he's doing.
And like,
That's-
I'm sorry, his dad's involved. I mean, I don't care
Yeah.
what you say now. Like, he lied.
Yep.
He's like, I don't know what my kid does. I'm like, okay, you're the worst father I ever met in my life. Like, you have no idea what your son's doing to make his money. And now it's coming out that he's on all this stuff, and it's just everyone's like, well,
I find it horribly sad. Like, truly.
it's so sad. It's
like,
like
I mean, we can make fun of Hunter Biden all we want, but the fact of the matter is, like, he's still a human being.
Yep.
And he still has his demons.
Yep.
And he's probably so unrealistically, like, unhappy all the time in his life
Absolutely.
because of all of this stuff that he's got to deal with. And the way that he acts it out is, of course, he's going to do that because he has no other options in his mind.
Yeah.
And then we have this mockery of him as a human because of what it is. And it's like, dude, this is more on Joe and Jill than it is on Hunter.
exactly.
You guys are the shittiest parents I've ever seen.
Exactly. It is so. I mean, it's like, I don't want to see anything bad come to President Biden, but I think there's something there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of one too. It's like with the Mar-a-Lago thing. I'm like, man, I just hope there's like the body bag comes out. So like they're there and we just get on with our lives. But it's not. And it's like, so what do we do? I mean, they just launched a special counsel now to investigate Trump and all that stuff again. So
Well, they have I think now that there's like a bunch of Republicans investigating Biden now too.
they will. And you kind of get a little, like, they kind of fall into it. Like right now, you got to prioritize. Like right now, our border's a mess.
Yeah.
I'd be like, all right, we're going to take care of the border. We're going to bring Homeland Security up here and we're going to have some conversations. We're going to figure out that. A little bit here too on what's going on with COVID and the origins and where is the HSS secretary who's been like MIA forever.
Right.
Find that stuff. All right, we got some inflation stuff. Do the same deal that you did with Obama, where you told him like, hey, you got to keep Bush's tax cuts in right now, and he did it. I'll tell Biden you're keeping Trump's tax cuts back in for corporates so we can get them back here, and then let's get into the Hunter Biden thing and kind of like.
Yeah.
Make your way up to the big match. You're kind of taking
it's
this,
gotten
this,
so
this,
personal
and then
at this point. Where it's like,
exactly, and that's again term limits.
get him
Pelosi's
out.
still pissed about Clinton in the '90s. Getting impeached. It's just like it's ridiculous.
oh man. Well, dude, this has been a fun chat.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's are you open to doing some current? We kind of talked some current events. You got
Yeah.
any? You got any for us, man?
Send some
Did you
out.
find any?
That was one of them.
Ah, damn.
The one that you brought up. But I cannot. Let me pull some out.
What was the one that he brought up?
The special counsel for
Okay.
Trump. But let me bring up the next one.
I love how they overuse the word special.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I hope everyone gets like. There's gonna be the pro-Trump people who are freaking out, but you got to think like he just declared he's running for president. I know Department of Justice says we're not political. They are. They work for whoever's in the executive. I mean, they fall in the executive branch. They kind of had to do this. I mean, there's something going. Like they did something where they launched an FBI raid. So, basically, DOJ's got to take a step back and be like, yeah, someone else has to go in, and we just kind of let them do their thing. So, I get that, but then you leave yourself open to, we clearly know there's something wrong with this laptop. We clearly know Joe Biden is the big guy.
It's just suppression.
Yeah,
Dude,
it's like
if this was Don Jr.,
it would be
we'd know every line of every
Yeah.
email on that stupid thing.
like Don Jr. was in.
They would be making fun of his porn preferences. Like, it would be such a deep
Absolutely.
mockery dive into that thing, but it's just suppression.
And exactly, and that's where it's like you could kind of help out America a little bit if you just showed like, okay, people are doing wrong. No one's above the law, and we're going to look at it. And even if it's one of our own guys, this is weird. I mean, I know Janet Reno, everyone got mad at her when she launched a special counsel on Clinton, but she's like, there was something up there, and clearly there was. But you just kind of look at that stuff where you see all that corruption and what he's doing, and everyone's just like, well, I'm Team Democrat. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
It's tribes, man.
It
They have
is.
a purpose. They have an identity. It's like it's actually predictable on some level if you look at it.
Yeah.
You know, I've been in the podcast game for a long time, and one of the very first sponsors that I had for my podcast was this cryptocurrency that was called Hope Gold Coin, and it was backed by gold and this whole thing. It's kind of debunked now, but the chairman of that board ended up becoming a good friend of mine, and his name was John Allen. It's not even his real name. I found out he wouldn't tell people his real name. Wow. John Allen was in Reagan's White House as an advisor from the CIA, and he was a spy in the Middle East in the 70s and 80s. So him and I would have these things where my wife would be playing bunco or some shit, and I'd get on the phone with John, and we'd just chap it up. Because he was 70 years old, but he was the most entertaining guy to talk to.
Yeah.
I'd get a little drunk, we'd be talking and rapping, and I was in the middle of House of Cards at this time, and I was like, "This is crazy, all this stuff there's doing." And he's like, "Are you stupid?" He's like, "That stuff is not even remotely 1/100th of how corrupt it is in Washington." He's like, "They don't even try hard to get to the real stuff." And I'm like, "Oh my God, really?" He's like, "Yeah." And I go, "Give me one example of something that like we are taught as American people that is a non-negotiable that we don't do, that we absolutely do, that is a key part of everything we do." He's like, "That's easy. Negotiate with terrorists." He's like, "You know how much money terrorists have of ours?" He's like, he's like, "I've been in foxholes in Afghanistan with $1 million in a duffel bag thinking I'm dead, trying to buy intel when I was a spy."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Oh boy." And he's like, and he actually was a big Epstein, like, he's like, "Dude, all those guys are into that sick shit, dude. You get to a certain level of power and the money doesn't matter and the influence doesn't matter. And like, just to get their rocks, like, it's got to be something weird, something off limits."
I don't get why they do it, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, when we're going through our free fall school, like the guys who are training us, they're all USPA guys. Like they're not even military. They have like 15,000 jumps, and they all do base jumping.
So many.
Yeah, they do base jumping now, and you're like, "Why do you do that?" They're like, whatever, fine. I jumped out of a plane again. I'm like, "Really?" And I'm like up there, like, "Oh, what did I get myself into?" Like, this is gonna be nuts. And they're like, "No, we gotta keep finding that rush." So that makes sense,
Dude, humans are all about more.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy too, because again, we know Epstein had that. We know that lady was his pimp. Well, there's an obvious next step.
Yeah.
Who was she pimping
The
out
idea
to?
that we don't know,
like,
and that's the thing is, like, I've always said that, like, if we don't get, if the answer we're given doesn't make sense, we're asking the wrong question.
yeah,
So when I look at that whole situation and Ghislaine and her list and Epstein magically disappearing or killing himself whenever the whole, like, I don't believe he's dead right now, dude. My conspiracy brain's like he's on some island somewhere with a bevy of 13-year-olds living it up. Like,
they're just like, "Hey,
he's
go
got
here,
all his money in
time
Bitcoin.
out."
Like,
yeah, no one hears you again, but
he's all good. Life. Yeah, and that was a part of the deal, so that they could get some political wins or whatever. Because he threw Ghislaine under the bus, and I don't know. I'm making shit up.
Yeah,
but my whole point was like that there. It would naturally be like, well, who were the clients?
Yep.
And nothing.
Yeah.
Like, who are these journalists that look at that and go, well, I guess they're probably being threatened, so that's probably why they're like, "Dude, we will kill you, or your family, or your whatever. We'll steal your children." Like, they don't just kill you.
Yeah.
They go after your
your livelihood and all that stuff.
Well, that's all like tradecraft stuff from the sandbox. You know?
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, and that's it's great that we talk about the reporters too, because just imagine if one reporter would be like, was that Hunter's laptop to President Biden? Because there's one guy, John Turley, he's a Democrat, but he's a constitutional lawyer out of George Washington, I think. And but he's like, actually Trump's team used him in the first debate, which was a brilliant move because they debunked like the three people Democrats brought as just people who personally hate the Trump family, like via tweet or whatever it is. Jonathan Turley's like, "I didn't vote for Donald Trump." He's like, "I'm not saying I agree with what he does, but he's like, the only abuse of power is you. You're abusing your power. You're forgetting about the judicial branch." He kind of went through. I'm like, man, that was well played how you do it. Yeah. So he's a very common sense guy, but he's like, Joe Biden's on a very slippery slope, and he better hope the media's nice to him, because if they ask that question and he says, "No, it wasn't mine," or "No, that guy's lying," he goes, "Ask Bill Clinton how it turned out when you said someone was lying." He's like, that would instantly launch a special counsel, and no one asked that question.
Well, dude, I think that's why there was such rhetoric about the midterms and him saying democracy's on the ballot and all that stuff. Because, dude, he knew if the Republicans had the House and the Senate,
Yeah.
he was gone.
Yeah.
Like,
And he even brought it up, I think. He's like, they want to impeach me.
Yeah. Wow.
That's great.
What you got,
else?
bro?
Yeah, sorry. Went down a rabbit hole in there.
Yeah.
One moment. Let me bring it back up. So, this is kind of a health topic. This is researchers out of Jerusalem show global sperm counts has fallen 62% in the last 50 years. Could threaten humanity's survival. Just a little into it is like our findings serve as a canary in a coal mine. We have a serious problem on our hands that, if not mitigated, could threaten humankind's survival.
So let me make sure I understand. So T levels are down 62%.
Down 62% over the past 50 years.
So to make sure I understand, like, so I want to make sure we're clear. So that's saying that like it used to be 100, now it's at 40.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot that can go into that.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about
It's a food,
the food
soy and all that,
and, really,
porn.
yeah, and people kind of like, I mean, I think I heard, what was it? Who's that lady down in Georgia? She lost governor.
Stacey Abrams.
She was saying like having less kids would solve inflation. And it's just like, I mean, literally, you're like,
Wait. She was the one that thought the island would tip over, right? That's got to be the same chick,
we will
right?
definitely show that one. I don't know if that guy's still in there, but holy moly. But yeah, but like you hear that stuff, and I don't know, man. Like, I know it's only kind of going down a conspiracy theory thing, but there is just some weird stuff going on.
Yeah.
Where,
Well, dude, this is. I mean,
yeah, these,
I totally know this is real, dude. As a, I'm 47 years old,
Yeah.
and in 2013, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer and lymphoma, and so I had surgery to remove my testicles, and I had to go through this treatment. I didn't do traditional treatment for the lymphoma stuff. I did Gershon, which was a holistic treatment that included like coffee enemas, and I changed my diet and everything. I had to basically take ownership of my own health at that point.
yeah.
And I really had to understand that dis-ease is what disease is. And if your body is not at ease,
Yeah.
it will allow things in. And from a mathematical standpoint, cancer and toxins are more toxins are coming in than you're dealing with. So that's what happens. So, but as a part of that, about 2 years later, I was having all these issues with like my energy levels,
Yeah.
depression. I was feeling the mood to drink more, everything. And I would work out still 5-6 days a week, but I wasn't doing any weightlifting. I was doing just cardio. I'd be like a elliptical machine queen over there and just do that for an hour, sweating my guts out, never losing any weight. I meet up with John Matson, who's a good friend of mine, and he's a former NFL player. He runs Superhuman out of Arizona, very, very accomplished and distinguished guy. And he ran a performance gym out of West Jordan before he moved to Scottsdale. And a friend of mine introduced me to him, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my body. Like, I'm working out a ton. He's like, well, what are you doing? And I told him, he laughed at me. He's like, you think you're going to get Shred City, like doing that shit? Like, all right, give me 90 days. So I started weight training with him the same way that football players would, like sprints, bench, squat, dead, heavy weightlifting, very little cardio, the whole thing. And it was working, and my body started to transform. But there came this moment about halfway through where John was like, bro, you need to get your T levels checked.
Yeah.
Like and I go, okay. So I went and got a thing of blood work, and I was at 125 was what my T levels were. And for those of you that don't know what that means, like a healthy 25-year-old is about 900.
Yeah.
And you can be at 1200 and be fine. Like you get above that and you get like acne and stuff like that and everything. So like I went and I ended up getting a prescription and started taking testosterone. And dude, everything changed about the way that my mind worked. I was clearer in my thoughts. I had more resolve to keep my word. And not that I wasn't keeping my word, but like if I was going to tell myself I'm going to go do this, I kept it up. And I started looking into it. And dude, it's an epidemic right now, dude. Everything about our food and all the processed stuff and everything that we're doing with alcohol, pornography is a big deal because like when you're using that stick too much and it's not with humans and it lowers your T levels, like staring at blue screens too much, like everything lowers that down. And the testosterone for men specifically is what makes you a guy. it makes you somebody that wants to go shoot a gun or to,
Yeah.
or to like go hunting or to like get your body in shape or whatever. You turn into this soy boy when you're not the same way, when you're just like these little frails. And you look at our younger generation.
Absolutely.
They're all man buns and narrow and super skinny. And the women are the really large ones. So it's like this thing is flipped. And so I totally know that that's a reality.
And that's a great, like, that's where I was going to. It's like, I think the way we're raising our children, I mean, one, I'm on testosterone treatment too, because what they found out, and especially in special operations community, it's just like we just lose it.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I went in to get my T level check, they're like, you're like an 80-year-old man. I'm like, geez. So I'm doing that for the rest of my life.
At least you weren't a woman.
Yeah, right. That was close, right? But I mean, because I get it. They're like, you guys' adrenaline's going so high, up, down, and just kind of starts wreaking havoc and starts rewiring you a little bit and this and that. I'm like, okay. But, you watch the way people are raising their kids, and I'm like, boys should want to be superheroes. I mean, like, my wife and I are like, we are going to raise our kids to be fucking monsters. And then we're going to teach them how to control it.
Yep.
Because that's what a man needs to do. And I know this sounds sexist. I don't give a fuck. Listen, I mean, it is men can do certain things that women can't do. Women can do certain things that men can't do. And it's worked for us for a long time.
Joe Rogan follows that up. It's like, and the reason why I know that is because I've met Shaq and his dick is where my face is. They're different. Yeah, but so you're on T now and you've got that.
Yeah, I've been on that since probably 20.
Isn't it a game changer, dude?
Oh, big time. I mean, it just, because you instantly feel it go into you. And like, again, I tell people, it's like, it's nothing like, I'm taking steroids or jacking up. It's just get my body back where it should be and function in the correct way. And yeah, then if you start living a little bit more of a clean life, I mean, some of the good things that have been for me is obviously cannabis. I'll microdose some mushrooms and everything like that. I really don't drink. I mean, not that like there's anything wrong with that. If you do, I'm good without it. And I started thinking, does that help me accomplish my mission? No.
Sure.
I'll wake up the next day, I feel like I got hit by a truck when I just had like 4 beers. And I'm like, God, 20s, I used to, you could have a keg and get back up the next day and do it again. So I definitely think it's things, and yeah, and the diet thing, that's what's concerning me, because that's kind of, people are just eating, like, who was talking about the whole thing, like the whole carbohydrate thing, and super carbs, and eat carbs, but then, and get away with the fats, but all we're doing is just putting a ton of sugar into our body, and that kind of started wreaking on havoc on some people, and
like the whole, like, fat-free is not actually a good thing. Like,
no.
it doesn't balance out in the system how your body digests it for the end that you're seeking.
Yeah.
So it's
and we're weird parents like that. Like, we actually really pay attention, making sure our kids are eating really healthy food, taking vitamins, just kind of.
Well, dude, I've noticed that if as a parent, if you do that, your kids will notice. Like, I know, like, so my 13-year-old daughter, COVID it kind of wreaked havoc on her. She gained a bunch of weight, and it was really hard on her.
Oh, absolutely.
But myself and my wife, like, my wife owns a Pilates studio. Like, fitness and health is a big deal to me. At 47, I'm rarely there's rarely people at my age that are more in shape than me, and not that I'm like some bodybuilder or anything, but I'm proud of the fact that, like, I'm able to keep myself in such a form. And she's seeing this, and she's noticing now as she kind of gets back into the habit of things where she's walking more, and she's told us, like, how can I eat better? Like, what can I do? And, like, we'll just follow what mom and I do. And it's been something, like, we know that she's going to have the capacity to see and think for herself differently when she gets older, because we've introduced a new idea to her.
That's awesome.
And we provided a life for her that shows her that, like, oh, you can work hard and get what you want.
There you go.
We don't have to feel bad about being successful. That's stupid.
No. I mean, go get yours. I mean, that's one thing my dad always taught me. He's like, I have money, you don't. And I'm like, all right. And he's like, you're never going to be the fastest, strongest, or smartest one out there. But the one thing you can control is your work ethic. If you outwork people, good things are going to come. Yeah. And, my dad was pretty tough on my older brother with sports, but he definitely took a different approach from me, where he kind of backed off and let me do my thing. And it's kind of like, you got to be the man in the arena. Like, you're the one, like, no one can lift the weights for you. No one can go do the sprint workout for you. No one can get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and take a weight gain drink, like, whatever. They have to want it. And that's kind of how we're doing the same thing with our kids, where it's like, listen, no more of this, everyone deserves everything. If you want it, go get it. If you didn't go after it hard, so sad, so bad, figure it out next time. But I just think as a society, we're getting away from that, and it's going to hurt. And I don't know.
Like, kids don't need much to see the disparity in what they're being seen as bullshit. Like, my daughter, she had a group project she was doing at school, and she ended up doing the whole thing because the other partner was just like, I'm sick, I can't do this, and she didn't want to like not do it and get it back, so she did it, right? And they both got the same grade. And my daughter was pissed. She's like, this is so stupid. And I'm like, well, why didn't you speak up? She's like, well, I kind of did speak up, but they were saying like that was a part of the assignment, is we needed to figure out the team event, and because I just did it, but that's BS. And I'm like, you are correct.
Yeah.
That is BS.
Yeah.
Remember this lesson.
Yeah.
You get yours, and then when you have yours, you can choose to be charitable with it however you want to uplift those around you.
There you go.
But the second that you start demanding or thinking you're entitled to somebody else's work, that's a problem.
Yep.
Okay, Dad.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, that was good. That was a good question. I like that one.
Yeah.
'Cause I am getting pissed with society, and now we're fucking raising kids. So hell yeah.
Good old Israeli. Yep. We got one more, then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, one more. Down the similar rabbit hole, but the researchers say tiny particles in air may trigger sudden cardiac arrest. So
Vaccines in those particles? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So data collected in Singapore over the course of nearly a decade by researchers suggests that breathing in higher concentrations of tiny particles in the air can cause cardiac arrest. And the findings of the study were published in, looks like, in Singapore.
Huh. Well, it's kind of, that seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Like, well, no shit. Don't suck off the exhaust pipe.
yeah. I mean,
And it is Singapore. Like, if you've ever been there, you know, it's like,
well, Singapore's really clean, though. I will give them that. I mean, I've been, now Indonesia and Jakarta, that's like, you know, get ready. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, totally. Like, don't dirty air.
And it makes sense. It's like your heart, when you have less oxygen in what you're breathing, your heart has to work harder. And so, and then if you factor in all of the other things like from before, low T and crap diet, and maybe you're overweight, or maybe, you know, all of a sudden it's like, well, duh. Of course your heart's
we don't talk about the weight thing, do we?
No, we don't.
It's
Did
like,
I think that's another one of those things?
Some 500-pound guy breathing some dirty particles and had cardiac arrest. It must have been those particles.
Yeah, we need to ban particles. Like, how do you?
It's like, everyone wear your N95 masks.
Well, dude,
particles are killing us.
We can kind of have this be one of our final thoughts with this, because I think that that's a mechanism of pharma again, where it's like we have this, like there is a whole celebrity push for this, you know, body positivity thing.
Yeah.
And body positivity got hijacked. The idea of like loving your body for being different and still wanting your body to be as in shape as possible and to be healthy and feel good. That's what it originally was.
Yes.
Like not all women are going to have the perfect hourglass shape. Some of them are going to be a little bit different, and that's fine. We love our bodies. We're going to take care of our bodies. Now it's like, well, body positivity means I can just do and eat whatever I want and not have any consequence for it, and you're supposed to think that I'm attractive.
Yep.
And like and then, what happens when you're those sizes? You're on a litany of meds.
Yeah.
Where do you get those meds?
Yep. The man.
Tired of being right, dude.
I know. It's hard. It's hard sometimes, isn't it? But yeah, it's just, I agree. You know, too, it's like we react to like, you know, maybe 5% of the population.
It's
like,
so true.
You know, before it was all those Twitter people, it was like 10,000 people could change the entire landscape of America. Yeah. Because they got upset. It's like majority of us are in the middle, and I think the majority of us all feel the same way. And why not just speak your mind? I mean, that's why I get tired of people where they just won't speak their mind. Like, speak your mind and defend it, and that's fine. That's what it's called. It's called debate. But just to be like, oh, you're right, you're beautiful because you did this, and no, I mean,
dude, I saw these videos on TikTok. It made me laugh so hard. There was like these clearly obese women saying that men that won't date them because they're not attracted to them not only are fat phobic, but they're misogynistic. Yeah. And then she has this like mental gymnastics routine that she talks about, how she spins it into the fact that like being unattracted to, you know, a larger person has nothing to do with anything related to actual sexual attraction. It's, you know, this, and she tried to like separate it from the same lane as like homosexuality. Because like if I'm a man and I'm into a dude, it's just who I am. Yeah. But if I'm a straight guy that doesn't like you because you're overweight, it means there's something wrong with me now. Yeah. And like she had these it was really curious. I'm like, wow.
That's a hell of a journey.
Yeah.
no, it's like I'm just not attracted to you.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not into
Can
it.
I just say that to you? Like, I just don't find you attractive. Like,
Yeah, that's a real thing. Like,
yeah, that's
and again, I
going
have
on
no
forever.
issue with like people are going to live how they want to live, and some men are into that, and that's fine too. But like to now start to make that like a personal like sort of character flaw that I'm not into you.
Well, do you feel like we're getting to a point where they're trying to control our words?
Yeah.
Which means they want to control our minds?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, like if you call someone, I mean, there's a million things you can be now and identified on your license. And if you mispronounce it or don't call them by their appropriate thing,
dude, I got to tell you something.
you could go to jail or get a fine or something like that. I'm like that. You know, what if I decide I'm a zebra today and no one calls me that? You shouldn't have to go to jail for that. Like, you know, there's pronoun things. Fine, feel good about, but if you don't know who I am by looking at me,
it's compulsion. It's compliance.
And all the virtual singling out there, all the people on LinkedIn, you know who you are. Putting the
Dude, if you have your pronouns in your bio, I'd laugh at you.
I do too.
So, dude, but so this is a real thing, and I haven't laughed this hard in so long. So, in your home state of California, up in San Francisco,
home state is Pennsylvania.
Okay, oh yeah,
Commonwealth.
So your adopted home is California, your state of residence. In San Francisco, they're now offering as a bill this guaranteed income for transgender.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
It's guaranteed basic info if you're transgender.
I know, which like, who's like, oh my God, it's about time we did
well,
this.
the rationale behind it is that people in the transgender community live a more difficult life because of the challenges that they face relative to their condition.
Okay.
That seems reasonable.
Sure.
Okay. But this is where it gets hilarious, dude. Like in the application process to get it, they show screenshots of like what's there. There's like 97 genders. Okay. 97, not 95, not 99, 97.
And this is all backed by science.
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Dude.
Good.
I shit you not. You know what? One of the genders is faggot. I'm not lying, dude. It has. You can check the box. Like, here's my gender list, and it said like faggot right there.
What?
I'm like, is that like having the N word as your
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
like
I was
every
like,
slur is now a gender?
Couldn't say that anymore.
I didn't think so either, but like it's on a
No,
medical
it should say- I
document.
mean, yeah, if you're-
Hey, bro, I'm in the clear. It's on a medical document here, people. Like I was just reading from the application.
Does it describe like what warrants to be that?
No.
Versus a
because
homosexual.
how dare
or
you
something?
question who I am?
I
know
mean,
that I'm a.
I just don't know. Yeah, there's like clearly that guy's that and that guy's that. Like, oh, I should have known. Like, I don't know how you.
I can just see all the comedy skits, man. Like somebody comes in to be interviewed for, like, oh, let me guess, you're that. And he's like, no.
How dare you? Did you look at the 96 more choices? That's no. We're just going.
It's clown world at this point.
It really is. We're like, I mean, again, I think people are so afraid of cancel culture and just like if you speak your mind.
That's
I mean,
like 6 people though. Like that's why if everybody speaks.
and that's everyone's like ho ho ho. Like oh
when
my God,
Elon
like,
bought Twitter, I went, dude. I used to hate Twitter.
Yep.
I was like, I'm staying because every time I'd go in, there was like just this piling on of nonsense. And when I'm like, dude, I'm going to go all in on building that as a part of my platform when it comes to my social media followings now, because it feels and it's proven what he's doing. He's going to make it free speech.
Oh, it's going to be great. I mean,
well, let me rephrase that because people have this sort of weird. It's so crazy to have to acknowledge that. Not free speech for the sake of saying all the bad crap that you want to say, but a true marketplace of ideas.
Exactly.
We can talk things out. We can like, this is my idea. Oh, your idea sucks. I got it. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
That's what most people that don't have really developed ideas are afraid of. Is that a good idea will come along and be like, no, yours is stupid.
Yeah.
Like that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Fan that out, scale it, put weight on that idea. It crushes under its own weight. Sorry.
Yeah.
But they can't because they're just too.
Yeah, it's too sensitive and fragile. Right. I mean, and I have the same thing. I was on Twitter a little bit, and I remember when Trump won Florida in 2020, I literally thought that was it. I was like, oh, he's winning again. So I retweeted it, and I got flagged. And so I was pushing out misinformation, all this. I'm like, I'm looking at all the news networks. I'm like, this is weird. So I'm like, I'm just done. Like, not like I have some cult following. I mean, I had like 100 followers or something, but I got off it. But as soon as he came back on, I'm like, I'm going to try it out again. And mine's strictly sports. Like, I just, I don't want to deal with all the other stuff. But I think it's going to be a good thing. Again, more people in the conversation, you can't convince me that's a bad thing.
Nope.
I mean,
Dude, I read a stat that said that Twitter gets like 600,000 tweets a second.
Holy moly!
I'm like, whew, that's
he's.
a lot.
I know there's some talk. I mean, something was Twitter like going to shut down last night, or what the hell was that?
Well, Elon locked everybody out of the building.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, and everyone is losing that. Well, first of all, like last week, he like pulled out, I guess that they used to provide meals for all the employees of the thing. And he was like, this is costing me $13 million a year. This is ridiculous. Consider $13 million divided by 365. Sorry, eat at home.
Yep.
And so he cut that, and they're like, you're not taking away our food. And they were all pissed about having to come back into work because like he said, you couldn't work remote, you know. Yeah. And then so he had that happen, and now he's like, and the kind of the buzz is, nobody really knows. There's been no official statement. It's like, supposedly they found some, you know, pretty nefarious sort of subterfuge going on there for the company. Like they were trying to fuck him. And he's like, okay, so you guys are all done. Dude, and it's so funny to have people be like, he's never going to figure it out. I'm like, bro, he founded PayPal.
Yeah.
And SpaceX and Tesla. He could figure out your social media.
Kind of like the closest thing to an alien that we know of.
He's Tony Stark,
right,
bro.
I mean, yeah, he's, and again, I mean, I don't know why. Well, I get it. You did take away the Democratic, I won't say liberal, the Democratic playground. Yeah. That's why they were up in arms, because they had free reign and could do whatever they
they were never questioned.
Their little echo chamber, exactly. Now you're bringing someone in. That's where you're like, okay, aren't you guys opening your eyes now where we're seeing a problem? Like he just comes in, everyone loves Tesla, he's doing this, he's doing all this stuff. But you're freaking out because he's going to just allow people on Twitter to express themselves and have a more open dialogue. That's how bad their
ideas are.
Yeah, exactly.
Their ideas are so bad they would like weep and wail against the idea of being checked on their ideas.
Yeah.
That's hilarious to me. Anyway, dude, how long have we been going, man? Attaboy.
Nice. All right. There we go.
Well, we'll wrap it up then, man.
Yeah.
So, Bryan, first of all, I got to applaud you again on the work you're doing with
thank you.
with your company, and you know, getting the research required so that veterans can use cannabis as a medicine.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing, man. God bless you on that. How can we help you? I know you said you needed money. Is there anything specifically that...
You know, I'll just tell people, go to battlebrothersfoundation.org, and whatever you can do for us, you know, I literally, I know it sounds corny, but just being in the nonprofit space, it's like every dollar does count, and it goes a long way.
Let's do this. We can talk about this at dinner tonight, but I want to figure out some sort of like deal where I can use my platform that I built, which isn't massive yet, but it's pretty engaged.
Yeah.
And, you know, even if we only raise, you know, a little bit of money for you, it'd be helpful, you know?
Oh, that'll be huge.
Put something out for Battle Brothers.
Absolutely. Yeah, and definitely, we're going to do some events coming up here soon, so I'd love to get you out for those as well.
That'd be sweet.
Out in the California area. So, and then we're working on some other things with the Helmand Valley. We're going to get a clothing line out there that we can send across the country, and maybe a couple other things that we're working on, because there's just a lot of people out there who want to support us, which is really great. So,
love it.
Yeah, I'm super blessed to be where we are, and I think everyone understands we're the real deal, and we're just proving it through our actions, and we're going to get this done. I know we will.
Right on, man. So where do people find you?
You can go to on Instagram, HVG Company, or Battle Brothers Foundation. My personal is Bryan Buckley 09. And please check out our websites at hvgcompany.com and battlebrothersfoundation.org. And just keep up. We're very transparent. We got a really good social media team. We're just going to keep putting information out there, so just follow our progress and see what we're doing. And I really believe in the next 90 days, you know, I think we got some good people. And, you know, I know Sean's a good guy too. Like maybe something might happen here where, you know, it just goes. And that's all we need is that little ignition, and we're out the gates.
I love it. Well, I'll get all those links from you, and we'll put them on the show notes. So if you guys are watching this, just scroll to the show notes part, and you'll see the links to be able to follow him on all the socials, and you know, check out the websites of what he's got going on. You are a gentleman and a scholar, my man.
Thank you, sir. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. You know the deal. Leave us a rating and review if you enjoyed this episode. Share it with your friends. Help us grow this so that we can get us in the eyes and ears of more people. And this is Stand Up.
Boom.